Hello. It's Chris from Crash Canon. I'm here with yet another guest. We've got Joey Olivo. Hope I pronounced that right since I got a practice shot before off screen. Why don't you tell everybody who you are before we get started?
Yeah, well, like I said, my name is Joey Olivo. I know Hispanic. It's a very plain Jane name. I was hoping I'd be named Joseph, but my dad had other plans for that. But so I'm here from the Dallas network, Dallas-Fort Worth area, and some of the things. I'm actually retired from the medically retired from the military. I got hurt when I was in the service, and so I just kind of became a second in command at Modern Day on their safety team, and just take care of my kids and enjoy life and finding the faith and trying to get my family to heaven.
And he's currently the employer of a certain landscaping person, according to his tweet earlier this year. If you don't follow Joey on Twitter, you definitely need to do so because you'll get some of these good jokes that he posts on there every once in a while.
Yeah, I always tell people, like, if I'm poking around at you and making fun of you, that's my love language. That's how I show it that I like you. If I like you, I'm going to make fun of you and kind of rib you and give you a hard time. And I kind of expect it in return, being a Navy guy. So that's kind of how we roll.
Absolutely. So why don't we get right into your background? Like, were you cradle Catholic? I'm assuming.
Yes, I was born Catholic. I was born far out in West Texas, so everybody always comments on my little bit of a twang that I have. I'm from West Texas originally. I didn't live there for very long. When the oil field went under in the 80s, my parents moved here to Dallas, but most of my family's still in West Texas and South Texas, and some in Colorado have relocated to Colorado. But we grew up Catholic. Wasn't very well catechized. So I drifted from the faith rather quickly, pretty much right after my confirmation. I was like, okay, I'm done, and left the faith.
Very, very similar experience.
It's it's unfortunate, and I left during that time right as I went into the military, and I participated in both the Iraq and Afghanistan campaigns, and so had a couple of very close, very hairy calls when I was over there. I said I got hurt when I was in the military and on my second deployment, and we struggled for a long time, actually. My mental health after I came back, I always tell my wife, I'm so sorry. I said, we got married, and then I got deployed like 10 days into our marriage. I got deployed.
That is rough.
And our marriage, we got married by the justice of the peace. So we later got convalidated, but we got married. I ended up getting deployed like 10 days into it, and I told her, I'm sorry. I said, I was, years later, I'm telling her, I was like, not the same guy. The guy you married isn't the same guy who came back, And
I've heard that before. Is that pretty accurate for most people that have gone through that?
It really is. It really is. And it doesn't matter what job you have in the military, the intensity of each job. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're doing paperwork, or you're processing paychecks, or you're working on the flight deck. Obviously, the most extreme, really going to affect you are the guys who are kicking indoors and taking fire, obviously, driving around, worrying about IEDs and stuff. Obviously, their issues are going to go more extreme, but the pace of the military is extremely fast, especially in wartime. You have to be ready to get up and go at a moment's notice. And so that puts a lot of stress on you. And so when you come back to the civilian world, I don't think anybody ever fully readjusts coming back to the civilian world, because it moves at a different pace, and we move at a different pace. I mean, everything from how fast we eat to how we drive and how we do things is just completely different from the civilian world.
So you get married, 10 days later, you're deployed. How long were you deployed for?
So that deployment, we were gone for almost 7 months. Almost 7 months. Yeah, we did a split tour of Iraq and Afghanistan, and that was a really cool deployment for us. We were the first naval carrier-based squadron to actually get pulled out off of the ship while we were in port. And then we were forward deployed to Bagram Air Base, Afghanistan, and they had found some unique capabilities with the aircraft that I worked on. It's a jamming aircraft, and so they sent us in country, and we worked really close with the special operations and the Central Intelligence agencies, and they were taking out high value targets and doing some other pretty cool stuff. There's a lot of it that we're still in the dark about. I know if you Google Operation Silent Hammer and you read it in the context of the time period, you'll be like, wow, it's really kind of futuristic sounding what we were doing out there. You read it in 2025, you're like, oh, that's no big deal. Of course they can do that. But when you read it in the context back then, that was a pretty cool experience. And so we got to actually go in country and operate there. And, we got to experience, rocket attacks and stuff like that. And it was definitely life-changing. And it was very, very intense. We went during the wintertime, so it's cold. When the tents flooded after a big snow, mice would come running in, and we had no heat in our tents. And
jeez,
it was an interesting experience. Definitely a once in a lifetime deal.
Now, that was your first deployment. Did you have multiple after that, or
that was my second deployment?
Second deployment.
My first deployment was on the USS Theodore Roosevelt. The Roosevelt deployed September 19th, 2001, which was eight days after 9/11.
Oh, and boy, yeah.
Our ship was the first to deploy. I actually have a little commemorative certificate on my wall from it, and it's real pretty. It has the pictures of the Twin Towers in the background, the Pentagon, and the map of Pennsylvania, and map of Afghanistan on there. At the very bottom of it, it says first to deploy on there, which is really cool. I really like that.
That is wild. Like I can't imagine going into being deployed during that. That is something else.
It really was. And, I was actually in my naval technical school whenever that happened. And so I got to come home briefly, and then I had to fly to Seattle, and then from Seattle to DC to Virginia to Portsmouth. I had to go meet the carrier out in the ocean. So I got a chance to actually land on an aircraft. I've actually got to land on an aircraft carrier a couple of times. And that's a really fun experience, because you're doing it blind. You can't see. There's only 2 windows in the cargo area, so you're just waiting for the impact and hoping that you catch the wire and don't miss.
Now, is it accurate that if you mess that up even once, you don't get to do it again, or how does that all work?
No. Actually, you can. So it's not uncommon during flight ops for a aircraft to miss the wire, and they'll just go around, and if they have to, they'll refuel. And the fueling is the most critical part. I mean, I did witness one. We witnessed one plane that missed. Oh man, he had to have missed 4 or 5 times in a row, and he just couldn't nail it. And finally, he got back on the boat, but you kind of get nervous for him after a while, because they are running. I mean, they're flying from the Arabian Gulf over Pakistan into Afghanistan, doing an intense mission where they're dropping bombs, strafing, and then they have to transit back over that same terrain and then make it back to the carrier and land on it after all that time in country. And that's extreme. Those pilots, my hat's off to the pilots of our military, especially the naval aviators that are having to land on a carrier, because that's a lot of mental fatigue you're going to go through trying to do that.
Yeah, I imagine. I'd heard for some reason, I guess I must just have bad information, that if you miss that wire during training, you're not supposed to keep going. But
yeah, before we go on deployment, they do what they call FCLPs, and their carrier landing practices, and they practice. But I mean, again, with the stresses of the mission and stuff, I don't know specifically if they keep missing, if they'll end up losing their qualification. Maybe that's a thing, but to my knowledge, I never witnessed a pilot that missed and wasn't able to fly again.
Gotcha. That makes sense. I mean, I imagine you want your best of your best piloting that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. And the naval guys, to me, everybody likes to claim that they're the best, but the naval aviators, in my opinion, when you have to land on a moving ship that's rocking up and down, it's in some of the stories, so I know one of the stories, one of our aircraft actually lost their heating system during their mission, flying multi-thousand feet up in the air. They were freezing cold. And they went through the entire mission. It was like a 6 or 8 hour mission they went on. And they came back, and they had to be physically helped off of the jet to come back down, because they were just so exhausted. They were cold, frostbite. I think a couple of them had frostbite, and it was a pretty extreme situation. But they handled it. They handled it like champs. They were absolute warriors in the cockpit.
So what is it like being in a cockpit like that? Is it cold? Is it, what is it like?
It typically is pretty comfortable in there for the most part, as long as your systems are working, your environmental systems are working right. It's not terrible. It's not the best either, but it's not terrible. But they are very cramped. If you ever sat in one, if you ever get a chance to go to an air show and sit in a cockpit of one of these aircraft, you'll see how tiny they are. It's not like sitting in a Southwest or American Airlines seat. It's nothing like that. And so you got to have endurance and a whole lot of mental toughness to sit there for however many hours your mission is going to be.
That's wild. I can't imagine doing something like that. But yeah, I hear stories from my father-in-law who was he was in the Navy and he was on a submarine. And every time he tells me about it, I'm just like so fascinated by living on something like that for
I would
shoot
never be on a
months.
sub.
I understand. I can't imagine doing that. It's just wild to me.
It really is. It really is. Yeah, it's definitely a very cool experience. And I got to work on the flight deck. So if you ever watch Top Gun, you see the guys that, you know, they raise their thumbs up in the air and then they launch the jet. That's what I did. So our job was to do all the final checks on the aircraft to make sure that it was flight worthy before it took off. And some of the things that can really, it can kill people, you know, if you're not making the right decision. And I remember my very first decision to ground an aircraft. This aircraft was on the catapult, ready to go, full what they call military power. So all they're waiting for is the thumbs up. And I had just given the thumbs up, and then I thought, and I know that I saw a drop come out of the engine bay door. I just saw like a quick little drip just kind of go across my field of vision. And I had a decision to make, like, is that fuel? If it is, you can't launch this aircraft.
So shut it down.
I
right?
threw up the X, and they called off the launch. Officers mad. It was actually I think it was our skipper, our commanding officer who was on that flight. He was not happy about it. And what had happened when we opened the engine bay door, just fuel comes flooding out of it.
Oh,
and
my
what happened is when they went to full military power, a gasket ruptured and the fuel started spraying into the engine bay. So had they taken off, that plane would have, and it actually happened on one or two deployments prior to us from on another ship. That exact same scenario they think happened because the plane took off, it was taken off, it looked good. All of a sudden they saw a puff of smoke and then an explosion.
Jeez.
And the plane actually blew up.
That's like straight up what the Challenger had happened during that mission, right? The gasket got cold, broke, and you got fuel flying all over the place and blew up.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what happened with that. And I remember he went from angry to very, very happy. You know, he was upset that the mission didn't go. They had to get another aircraft. But the fact that we actually caught that, you know, and you're a 19, 20-year-old kid making these calls, you know, it's a very intense environment. And I had the honor of being selected for my shop at all the guys there to go up there. Some of them didn't even want nothing to do with it, but there was, you know, a couple other guys that were higher ranking, had more experience than me, and they were like, hey man, if you want to do it, go for it. And I'm like, yeah, I want to do that. It's the most challenging environment to work in. It's on the flight deck of an aircraft carrier. It is something like you'll never experience.
Yeah. Did you have any, like, other than that one, which obviously was a very close call for individuals involved, do you have anything that was life-threatening for yourself while you were out there? Like anything crazy?
Yeah. So how I got hurt. So the day that I got hurt was a day actually of a very important mission. We actually got pulled out of port for this deal. And it was like everything that could go wrong went wrong. And the catapults kept breaking. So they kept bouncing us back and forth between the far port side, which is Cat 4, and the far right side, which is Cat 1. And about the third or fourth time they moved us, I was walking in front of the jet because I was going to be the final checker on that. And the plane was stalled behind us. It was behind us, and we were waiting for a jet to launch. And unbeknownst to us, they decided to turn him around and go back to the port side to Cat 4. And when that happens, if you see a jet turning, you're supposed to look at the guys that are going to get blown by the exhaust, and you do this symbol to say, hey, there's a jet turning on you. And on the carrier on the flight deck, there's what they call pad eyes, and it's a circle about that big for the chains. Mm-hmm. And it has little bars inside where you can hook the chains in. You just grab onto that and hold on for dear life. And usually it's no big deal. But the officer of that particular mission, he got frustrated and he goosed his throttles high. And each of our engines puts out about 10,500 pounds of thrust. And I got hit with a very high wind. Actually, he got me and four other guys, but I was in the most direct line of the exhaust. So it swept my legs out from underneath me. I slammed my back on the ground, slammed my head on the ground.
Oh my God.
And I go flying across the flight deck and I can't stop. Like I'm trying to stop. I got briefly blacked out. I come to, I'm kind of dazed. And I'm like clawing at the flight deck, trying to stop myself. and I'm going right into the path of a jet blast deflector. So the jet that was at full power getting ready to take off, what happens is it takes off down to catapult, and the deflector, which the exhaust hits and then comes up and over, it automatically it lowers back down. And so you can either be crushed by that, or you could go into the actual afterburner of the aircraft, which is like a 20-foot flame, and get burned to death.
Goodness.
And so I see this coming right at me, and I was just like, I'm getting ready to die. This is it. And I just kind of started to brace myself for it. And all of a sudden, this dark shadow appears over me. And this big, heavy body is on top of me. And I get up and I stop. And I'm like, I'm still kind of in an adrenaline rush. I don't feel any pain yet. And I look up, and it's one of my best friends, Cassidy White, Petty Officer Cassidy White. He's actually a sheriff's officer in Idaho now. And he had ran through the exhaust and jumped on top of me. He saved my life. He truly did. He saved my life. And I got up and I was running. He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm okay." And then everybody's pointing at me, and I'm like, well, "Why are they pointing at me?" And then I feel this burning sensation on my leg, and I reach back and I tap my leg, and my pants had ripped open along the back of my hamstring, and the flight deck non-skid had tore my skin open. I was just bleeding everywhere.
Goodness.
So I had to go down and get checked out. And while I was down there, they was like, our squadron doc was like, our corpsman was like, "Is anything else hurting?" I'm like, "Yes, my back kind of hurts." I said, "I slammed it pretty hard." And he made a note of that, hurt back on flight deck. And so all these years later, I get out. And when I go to the VA to claim my deal, that one little entry was what got my claim rolling, got it approved.
Wow. That just kind of, isn't it wild? Like the small details like that.
The small details. But yeah, that was the scariest one. The second scariest one, I was on the flight deck in the middle of the night, pitch black, and I jump up on the flight deck, and they're rolling an aircraft back, and the tire is coming right at my foot. So I was like, okay, either my foot's going to get crushed because they don't see me, or I have to just jump backwards and hope that I don't jump too far, end up going down to the ocean, like 90 feet down to the bottom. But luckily, I jumped back just enough into the catwalk where I landed on a bunch of fuel hoses. And I was like, oh, that was close. I mean, I had like the tingling head going, had a pretty good adrenaline rush. And that was another close call that I had, because that could have either lost me a foot, or I could have been in the ocean in the middle of the night.
Yeah, you can't really see anything in the ocean in the middle of the night.
No, it's an absolute scary place to be. It is pitch black, and we had one guy that fell over on our first deployment, and he actually got sucked under the ship. He managed to push off the side of the ship, and right then his float coat auto inflated. It has a salt tablet and a CO2 canister in it. It auto inflated, and it brought him back up to the surface, and they were able to rescue him. But luckily, it was during the day, and they saw him go over. Yeah,
that's scary. I mean, 90 people. I don't think people appreciate what a 90-foot fall on the surface of water would do to you.
Yeah, it's like hitting concrete. You know, we used to jump on swim call. I only got to experience one swim call while I was in. We were always busy, you know, during the whole Afghanistan, Iraq thing, and so I only got to experience one swim call. And they lowered the elevators down, and it's like 35 or 40 feet or something like that. And when you hit the water at that speed, it doesn't exactly feel good if your legs aren't perfectly going into the water the way they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And so I can only imagine what 92 feet is like. It's got to be an intense experience.
Yeah, I mean, the highest thing, I did a high dive at a college once, and that's the closest I can come to. That's not even that's probably like 20 meters or less.
Yeah. And
that hurt, you know, and I knew what I was doing as far as like keeping, you know, pencil shape and all that.
Mm-hmm.
That still hurt. Like my feet were red. It's like, that is not, I mean, you don't want to fall 90 feet, period.
No, definitely not at all. That's not a fun experience. So yeah.
So what are some of the most memorable things? Like, what are some of the good, like really cool things that you would say from working in that environment? Anything that you could talk about that you really enjoyed while you're doing that?
All my brothers. That was the most enjoyable part of it. My buddy Lugo, my buddy Register, Hayden, T Wood. I mean, all these guys I still know them to these days. Monsieur, all these great guys that I worked with, and especially that Afghanistan crew. There was 32 of us, and 4 aircraft. We had a 100% mission sortie completion rate while we were there. We had all kinds of issues while we were there, and we didn't miss a single mission. And the Afghanistan mission was one for the books. It had never been done before in naval history. That was a big highlight of my career. And I also have to say that meeting the 9/11 firefighters was really cool. So on my first deployment on the way home, we pulled into Marseille, France, and they brought in, I think it was a USA Today, like the Good Morning America show was there. And they did a show where they had given us the flag that flew over the rubble of the World Trade Centers after they collapsed.
That's wild.
And they gave us the flag. We flew it over the ship the first night of the war, and then we gave it back to them when we came home. And so I was actually in the hangar bay when we did that ceremony, and that was really touching, and it was a really cool experience.
Very cool. And also very tragic, obviously.
Yeah.
So you did your 2 deployments. How many deployments total did we say?
Two deployments.
2 total. Okay. Mm-hmm. So after that horrible incident with your back and all that, you get medically discharged. Is that accurate?
No, I finished my 4 years.
Okay.
As it came time to re-enlist, my back was starting to hurt more and more, and I was like,
okay,
I can't do this again. And we were getting ready to go on another deployment, and I was just like,
okay,
I can't do it. So I got out, and then about 2 years after I got out, the pain had gotten steadily more intense. And then one morning I actually woke up and I couldn't stand straight up.
Oh my goodness.
And I come walking down the hall, hunched over, and my wife and my mom, who was there, she was like, you got to go to the VA and get checked out. And so that's how I got that whole deal going. And that ended up being like an 8-year fight trying to get my benefits. But
that's a long time. I mean, I can't believe the VA makes people fight that hard just to get the benefits they fought and served for.
It's an unfortunate reality of being in the military is that when you get out, if you have injuries, you're going to have to fight tooth and nail. It's just part of the gig. It's something you have to just learn to accept that you can't walk, and they're like, oh yeah, that's 10%.
Oh my goodness.
I literally can't go to work. How is that 10%? So you go from 10 to 20 to 30 to 50 to 70, and eventually you get up to 100. So,
I mean, really, people who fight and serve for this country, like the expectation I would think would be the country would take care of them. But I know from talking to people and your own story, it's not that easy for that to happen.
No, it's definitely not. But then when they get you in the VA system, they just want to force feed you pills down your throat, and that's a whole nother story with that.
Yeah, I definitely heard that from other people, and that's not where you want to be either, right? You don't want to be sitting taking pills all the time.
No, and that's exactly where I was at when I got to my worst. This was when I was about 28. They had me on 3 different psych medicines. They had me on max prescriptions for hydrocodone, tramadol, steroid pills. I mean, you name it, I was on it. I was taking 32 pills a day.
That's insane.
And they ended up prescribing me one more psych medicine because I was having a side effect. And it was like one too many. And I'll tell the story. We have a couple minutes. And
go ahead.
We were at home. I did get this new medication. I take it. And out of nowhere, my wife goes to bed. Out of nowhere, my heart feels like it's pounding out of my chest.
Ooh.
So I wake her up. I'm like, babe, feel my heart. My heart's coming out of my chest. And she's like, no, it feels fine to me. It doesn't sound like it's any faster. And she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. Just go back to sleep. I'm good. So I go back out into the living area. We were living on a 3rd floor apartment, and I start hearing voices.
Oh my God.
Seeing shadows. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I'm like fighting with my mind. Like, there's no way that I'm seeing or hearing. This isn't real. And they were trying to convince me. These voices were telling me to jump off of my 3rd floor balcony to a tree that was in the middle of the courtyard. Now, man, granted, I have a terrible back, and I also had muscle atrophy in my legs, which I still suffer from today. And it was like, you can jump out to the courtyard to this tree, climb down the tree, and just go for a run. You could use a good run, Joey. And I was just like, no, like there's no way. Well, then I black out. So I black out. It's 1 a.m. I black out. When I come to, it's 4:00 in the morning, and I'm staring at myself in the mirror, flicking my tongue like a snake. And I have my knuckles buried so hard into the granite, they actually hurt for a few days afterwards. And I come to and I'm like, what in the world is going on? And I immediately, this was the scariest, I'd say this is the scariest moment of my life. And I've already told you a couple of, kind of crazy deals that I've been through. And I immediately remembered all the stories of veterans who had claimed to a blackout, and then they woke up and they came out of it and they had hurt their families. And so it took me like 30 solid minutes to come out of the restroom just to go check on my family. I walk out, my wife's asleep, she's fine. I go and check. I only had 2 kids at the time, and I went and checked on them and they were fine. So I went back to once I saw they were okay, I was just like, oh, praise God. So I run back, I wake up my wife, and I have all my medications. I'm like, take all these medications and get them out of the apartment. Take them to a pharmacy, get them out of here. I'm never taking this stuff again. And I did. We got everything out. I went cold turkey on that stuff. And that was the beginning of my reversion back to the faith.
Okay. That would definitely give you some serious, that experience like that is life-changing as a lot of the other things you're describing. Like, how do you come back from that? It's like, you don't even remember what happened.
Yeah. I didn't. I had no clue what happened, and that started, like I said, it started a snowball effect because I got off the pain meds and stuff, and I didn't have withdrawals, but I do have physical pain, so my pain was going through the roof, and I actually got suicidal. I actually contemplated suicide one night, and I waited for my family to go to sleep, and I was like, you know what? I'll wait for everybody to go to sleep, and I'm going to do this deal. I'm done. I'm tired of suffering. I don't know what life is. Shouldn't even be like this. And so as I'm waiting for everybody to go to sleep, I turn on EWTN. I see the EWTN. I'm like scrolling through the channels. I see EWTN, and it's just starting. And it's Mother Angelica Live. It's a rerun. And the name of the show was called Bad Things Happen. I start watching this show. 30 minutes into it, I am like bawling my eyes out. And I put my gun up, and I was like, this is who I need to listen to. So I started watching her show. The next show that came on was about St. Padre Pio, and she talked about suffering. I mean, talk about providential.
Oh,
and I learned about Padre Pio, and then that's how I found out about redemptive suffering and went down that road, and here I am today.
Now, so that was the start of your journey back, was after that blackout, dropping the pills and all that stuff. Was it pretty much immediate? Do you feel like it took a while, or
it took a while?
It took a while. Okay.
It took a while. Absolutely. Yeah, it did. It took a little bit to kind of get things. Again, I was so poorly catechized. I didn't know a lot about the faith. Like, I mean, we went to my parents' parish where they had always gone, and it was fine. It was a good parish, but the theology wasn't there. It was TED Talks, And so the theology wasn't there. They didn't talk about redemptive suffering. They didn't talk about sin. They didn't necessarily talk about going to hell, and things of that nature. So that's when I got turned on. After I started coming back, I found Sensus Fidelium and started listening to these priests giving these homilies. I'm like, oh, this is what I'm talking about here. This is what I need to hear. And so I spent probably about 2 months listening to Sensus Fidelium every single day. I would just absorb it. My kids were at school. My wife was teaching, to support us. And so I just really took it all in. And that's what really kind of got me going on things. And my devotion to St. Padre Pio was monumental. He really helped me out a lot.
So you must have really loved that Padre Pio movie that came out. That was awful.
Yeah, that was terrible. I
can't believe
I didn't even watch it. The one I like is Padre Pio Miracle Man. That's a really good one.
Is that one the early 2000s one?
I think it was an early 2000s one. It was great. I really liked that one. It showed all the persecution he had to deal with, and I watched that one. I really enjoyed that one.
Yeah, definitely skip the new one. I was so excited for Shia LaBeouf playing Padre Pio and what he had gone through, and the Bishop Barron interview really enticed me. And then I saw Anthony about that, and I should have listened to him post his review of the video on Twitter. And I was just like, oh, I hope he's wrong, because I bought it and I'm going to watch it. So that night, my wife and I watched it, and we were like, yeah, that was a movie, I guess.
Yeah, I still haven't watched it to this day. I'm like, no, I'm good. I saw a couple of the previews and my instincts were just going, don't watch that.
I mean, they had all the best scenes in the commercials, and that's how it usually goes with bad movies. Like that meme of Shia LaBeouf going, "Say Christ is Lord." I mean, it's amazing, but suffering through that movie was not.
Yeah, that had to have been penance in its own right, just sitting through that thing.
Oh, absolutely. So, with the redemptive suffering, was that what drew you to Padre Pio then, for sure? That was the...
Yes. Yeah. The redemptive suffering and learning that you can suffer not only for yourself, but for other people as well. That was really eye-opening for me. I'd never heard of anything like that in my life. And so I really kind of embraced that. And then I started trying to find, that kind of led me to finding a new purpose. And so when we found tradition, the last time I went to my parents' church, there was a homily being given by the deacon, and the gospel reading was when Jesus was lost in the temple. And after 3 days, they find him. And the deacon goes, and I can only imagine the apology Jesus Christ had to give to the Blessed Virgin Mary and Saint Joseph. And I'm like,
no.
Yep, that's it. We're out of here.
No. Oh, no.
And then my hometown parish in West Texas was, oh, man, one of the worst. And they have these terrible music, and the priest would dance down the aisle. He tried to kick my mom out of mass one time because he was 30 or 40 minutes late to mass. And then he tried to kick my mom out because she was just like, hey, where's the father? He didn't like that. And then that priest ended up getting laicized. But before that happened, we went there for Easter, and I told my grandmother, I said, Grandma, I love you. I think she's like 85, 86 now. I'm like, I love you, but I can't come to mass here anymore. Because Easter Sunday, the last time we went there, he gets a bucket of holy water, gets it into the font, and then tosses it out into the pews. And the girls that were in front of me, I was in row 3. The 2 girls in front of me had these beautiful Easter dresses. They had their hair all done up. They looked like they went to a water park. I was like, oh my goodness. I said, nope, I'm sorry. Good. I said, Grandma, we'll stay late on Sunday, and then we have to leave, by noon. That way we can make it to Mater Dei on the way home and just stop in for mass there on Sunday evening. I said, I can't do this no more.
That's something. That is something. Can't say I've ever had a priest do that. In my area, most of the priests, even the ones that are less traditional, would never do something like that. Like, literally, I've never seen a priest take a bucket of holy water. First off, that's wasteful. But second off, it's like, usually they dip it one of the, I don't know what they call that little thing that stores the water in like a little ball in the end of a rod, but they usually do one of those and just...
Yeah, this was definitely not that. This was full on, like a half a gallon of holy water into the first 3 rows. It was so bad. It was the cringiest thing ever.
I'm just picturing like a Lowe's bucket and like a, you guys have Lowe's in Texas, I assume?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Picturing like a Lowe's bucket. Just...
It was so bad. Oh man, it was so bad. But yeah, that's how I ended up at Mater Dei. And it was crazy. So when I made my decision to come back to the faith, I had all these secular friends, and the day that I was like, I am coming back home, I'm coming back to the church, they all stopped calling me at the same time. It wasn't like I made a social media post about it or anything like that. It was just like, I made the decision and God was just like, oh, they're gone. And I didn't have a single friend for like 9 years. It wasn't until my counselor at the VA is like, how many friends do you have? I'm like, that's a great question. I have my wife. He's like, no. How many friends? Like, not family members. I'm like, well, honestly, 0. I don't have any. And I started praying for friends. And so when I came to Mater Dei, I was talking to the pastor there, and he's like, hey, so I heard you do barbecue. And I'm like, yeah, I love me some good barbecue. And he's like, so you do like burgers and dogs? I'm like, oh no. I said, I'm not talking like briskets and pork shoulders or ribs. He's like, oh, that's what I'm talking about. So he ended up volunteering me for a parish volunteer appreciation dinner. And that's how I ended up meeting Tom, who was our first head of security there. He's the one that founded the security team there, or safety team there at Mater Dei. And so I was doing this event. I'm slicing this deal. And somebody's like, oh, yeah, I heard you were in the Navy. You actually deployed. And I was like, oh, yeah, I've done a couple of deployments. And he was just like, and He was like, "Hey, I'm Tom. I need you on the safety team." I was like, "Yeah, sure. Sounds great. Let's do it." And from there, all kinds of great men came into my life, and it's been great ever since.
And what is your favorite thing to barbecue? What's your specialty dish?
Ooh. So I hate saying this because I know the patron saint of barbecue on Twitter is lurking out there. Brisket is really my thing. I actually just did some for my daughter's graduation / birthday party. She did all of that in 4 days. And so I did a couple of briskets. So brisket is my favorite, is my absolute favorite thing to do on the smoker. I will say that patron saint of barbecue is on a whole nother level. He is. I've had his barbecue many of times, and he is just on a whole nother planet. I thought I was good. I mean, I don't even eat out at barbecue places. Very rare that I eat. There's a few here in the area that are outstanding. So if you're ever in the Dallas Fort Worth area, I can point you in the right direction to all the great ones out there. But his is on a whole nother level.
I think I've still got at least one family member that lives out there, but I've never visited Dallas.
Yeah, Hurtado or Danes and Fort Worth, those are like the top, in my opinion, like the top two. Those are the best ones to go to. In my area, it's Hutchins. They're fantastic, and that's really the only ones that I really eat at.
That way, so I see these memes all the time about. I think it's a restaurant or not a restaurant. Maybe it's a gas station called like Buc-ee's or something.
Oh, Buc-ee's, yeah.
Is that like a thing?
Buc-ee's is a thing here in Texas. I mean, now they've expanded out to other states as well, but Texas is like the home base for Buc-ee's, and I love going there. I mean, actually, I love, but I don't love, because if I go in with the family that I got, I'm spending over $100 easy. Now their barbecue it's good. I mean, it's a good snack. I don't say no to it. But it's not something if I'm craving barbecue, I'm like, oh, let's go to Buc-ee's. I'm not going to do that.
You're
There's
more
like
likely
one
to
like
make
20
it
minutes
yourself.
from my house, but I'm not going to go seek it out if I really want good barbecue.
That makes sense. So what is it like walking into a Buc-ee's? Like, what is it exactly?
Oh, so it's everything. So they have like 1 million gas pumps. So when you drive up, it's like overwhelming just to choose a gas pump, because there's like 1,000 of these things. And then you walk into the store, and it just reeks of Texas. Because even outside, this is a cool thing about Buc-ee's. This is what I really like. When you walk up outside, you'll see fire pits, deer corn for hunting. You'll see deer blinds. You see the big giant beaver out there where you can take pictures of it. And then you walk inside, and you get the aroma of the barbecue, the jerky, the 5,000 different sodas they have in there. And then they have their shopping area that's like all things Texas, cutting boards, aprons, like everything that your wife wants to buy is right there. And she's going to bankrupt you, and there's nothing you can do about it.
It's like Texas Target, basically.
It is. It's great. Don't get me wrong. I like going there. I just don't like the money we spend when we're there.
I feel you on that. We've got, I mean, the only thing we've got that has hunting stuff like that is like we got Cabela's in the area I live in. Well, it's Bass Pro Shop now, but
yeah, that was kind of a weird merger of those two, but yeah,
it is weird.
Yeah, Buc-ee's is like that minus the guns. It's just Texas
plus gas.
Yeah, plus gas. Yeah, and you get the gas, and they're and everything in there is great. I mean, it's good food. I mean, I'll eat it if we go. Like, hey, yeah, I'll get me a sandwich. Well, like I can't get the sandwiches now, but I can eat the meat off the sandwiches. But I try to keep my health good nowadays, so I can't necessarily go in there and scarf down like 2 or 3 sandwiches like I used to.
So with your barbecuing hobby / whatever, I'm not sure if that's a hobby or what, because people eat and whatnot, but I maybe describe it as a service, whatever you want to call it. The barbecue thing is cool, but how does that affect your carnivore diet that you've been doing?
Actually, hasn't affected it a whole lot. I mean, I am limited on the like what kind of seasonings I can use now, because a lot of them have sugar and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I know the Dano's has a couple of really good rubs that are very low in sugar, have no sugar in them. I stick to more. I mean, with brisket, it's salt and pepper. When you're in Texas, it's salt and pepper, no sauce. If your brisket needs sauce, it's not going to be very good brisket. That's the motto down here. Don't shoot the messenger. That's just it. Now, I do make a really good homemade brisket sauce that a lot of good old boys down here, they love it. They're like, no, I don't need no sauce on my brisket. But then they taste it, it's espresso sauce, and they really do enjoy it. But I'm more of a salt and pepper kind of a guy, and I keep the seasonings really simple. And I have some other like hybrid styles of like, especially with like pork. Pork is a pretty bland cut of meat, so you got to use a lot of seasoning on there.
Yeah.
So for my family, I'll make some sauced up ribs for them. I got to stay away from those things.
Now, what's more important, how you cook it or where you source it from?
Both. You want to get it from a good, from a good butcher. You want to find a good butcher, or if you're going with Costco and places like that. I'm getting real particular about my meat now. I like it to be organic, grass fed now, at minimum grass fed, and the prices on a grass fed brisket are just absolutely insane. So I won't be doing a ton of briskets anymore, but and then the preparation and the actual process of cooking is so meticulous. Brisket is one of those things that if you have an inconsistent temperature while you're cooking, it's not going to come out right. It's going to be tough. It's going to be hard. You got to have the right temperature, the right amount of moisture, and everything has to go really perfect for that to come out the right way.
Yeah. The place where we get our meat is usually like, we got a couple people right down the road from us, like various cow farmers. Buddy of mine actually raises pigs, so that's where we get our meat from. Is the local guy raises cows, and local guy. Whoops!
Yeah,
knocked my whole setup over just now. Hit the USB cord pretty hard there. Whoops! But my buddy raises pigs, and we buy our pigs from him. We actually, for the first time ever, cured our own ham in a bucket. It was kind of cool.
Oh wow, that's awesome! It's I've actually gotten into watching videos on the Appalachia style way of preserving pork. And there's a YouTube channel. I think it's called like Stony Creek Farm or something like that. And his dad is getting older now, but he was showing like the old salt boxes and stuff. I'm like, I am so into doing this when I make my move out into the country here in the next year or so. I'm like, I want to learn and do all of this stuff. And so hopefully I'll be able to peel off a couple of briskets from Taylor here at some point.
Good luck. Those would probably be some good ones. I bet his are mostly grass fed, right?
They're all grass fed.
They're all
grass fed. Yeah, it's totally grass fed. The guy that he got the place from, there's never been fertilizer on the land.
That's awesome.
There's I've watched the land improve over the last year since I've been going out there and going hanging out and helping them with calves and all that stuff. And it's to see like we were out there on retreat here just like not even a month and a half ago, and the paddock that he was getting ready to rotate back to, which is the very first paddock, the grass was pretty much almost up to your stomach already.
Oh, geez. Yeah, that's a lot.
And the paddock that they're getting ready to move off of, I mean, the grass is probably they ate it down to about that high up off the ground. And in a month's time, that grass will be back up to your waist or your stomach area. That's just how fast it grows.
Must have some really fertile soil out there.
Yeah, it's a sandy loam soil. They get a lot of good rain out there, and especially this year, man, it's been raining like crazy out there. And so his grass it's beautiful. It's lush. You don't get a ton of fire ants and stuff out there because the cover of the grass is just so high. You don't get as much of a fire ant issue out there. And I mean, the amount of bees and stuff that he has for his hives, I mean, it's amazing ecosystem. The regenerative style of rotational grazing, aggressive rotational grazing it's so far above and beyond what you see in the commercial operations, corn and all that stuff. Very little grazing. I mean, they'll leave those cows until that grass is barely on the ground, and then they start feeding them corn. And it's not healthy. That's not how the cows should be raised. And the way that Taylor's doing it is just, it's the way that it should be done. And that's the way that I plan on raising my cattle whenever I get out there, is doing it that exact same way.
You're making me really want to start doing that as well. Cause my dream would be to have a homestead.
Yes.
I would love to have my own homestead. I mean, I know it's a lot of work, but my kids would learn so much from something like that. And we already raised chickens. I love raising chickens. They say
the chickens are the gateway to homesteading.
Never have to worry about composting though, because the chickens will eat all of it,
Yes.
And the thing that gets me is like these industrial chicken operations, they're just fed the same stuff day after day after day. and I buy the yolks from the store, and it's absolutely true what they say. Like the yolk at the store, when you crack an egg in a cast iron or whatever you're cooking in, it's not the same deep yellow you get from your own chickens when you raise them. I mean, it's night and day difference in color.
Oh, absolutely. Since my hospitalization, I have switched to like pasture raised eggs and the yolk. I mean, the first time I ever cracked a Vital Farm pasture raised egg into I'm like, what was wrong with this chicken? Like that, it was like almost orange, like almost like a reddish orange color. And I was like I was doing some research on it. Like, no, that's the color it's supposed to be, not that milky, almost whitish, yellowish color that you get from like your store brand eggs. Like it's not even close. And you can tell the difference in the satiation. You're satiated after you get through eating these eggs. You're like full for longer. I can eat 2 meals a day, and I'm perfectly content doing that.
Yeah, when I eat the eggs from our own chickens, I mean, it's night and day difference. Like it's thicker, it's denser, it's more nutritious. It's just there's nothing like eating food that you raised yourself.
Exactly. And, and the skills, the skills you learn along the way, and going back kind of to Taylor's place, watching his boys go out there, and they're repairing fences, a tree falls down on a fence and they're like putting stuff back up. I mean, they know how to do it all. And to watch them do that, it's really amazing to see. And that's what I'm hoping to pass down to my younger children. I got a bunch of little ones, and I'm hoping to pass down those same skills down to them so they can not be dependent on the big machine out here in the world, and be able to raise their own food and to make their own bread and to do all those things that's necessary for survival. And you don't have to worry about going to a grocery store for very much.
Yeah. When you start doing the sourdough starters, I'm assuming you guys have done that at least a little bit.
I've experimented with it. My buddy Sam, who's actually the co-founder of our website, he is the sourdough guy. His family, they can make bread like nobody's been. So we have a men's group every Tuesday night. We do a Bible study and we pray the rosary together. And he brings, like, everybody's like, "Hey, did Sam bring the sourdough?" I mean, it's amazing. And I haven't had it in a minute. I'd actually like to put on a glucose monitor to see the difference.
It's huge. It's a huge difference
from that to like white bread. I haven't eaten bread in forever. But I'd be interested to actually have a serving of that and to see what it does to my glucose levels.
It's a lot like less impactful. Like I keep saying I hate it that I say like that much, but the sourdough is so much different in the way it hits your gut. Like when I eat bread from the store, I can feel it. Mm-hmm. When I eat the sourdough bread that my wife makes, my wife is amazing at baking. I'm so lucky to have a wife that can cook and bake and all that stuff. And it just does not make me feel sick all day long when I eat it.
I bet. And I had one tortilla 130 days ago. And I was right after I left the hospital, and I was like, I even texted my nurse. She was like, "If you need anything, any eating advice, just text me and I'll let you know if you can eat it or not." And I texted her, "Hey, can I have a tortilla?" And she was like, "Well, how many grams of carbs?" I'm like, "It's 23. She goes, "Okay, you can have 2 of those." And I ate one, and my glucose levels just spiked to the roof.
Jeez.
And I was like, never again. Like, never again. I got to eat tortillas for 38 years. I can go the next 40 without them.
Is that because of your carnivore diet, or is that because of other reasons?
It was because when I went to the hospital, I thought I was having intestinal issues, and it turns out that I was actually in what they call DKA, diabetic ketoacidosis.
Oh,
and
geez.
They kind of suspect I'd probably been diabetic for about 5 years, but my body was shutting down. My pancreas was so inflamed that my upper stomach was like extended out from my body. My gallbladder it was bad.
No, I'm not laughing. I was choking. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry. Sam Adams is trying to kill me.
That was great timing then.
I know. Sam Adams is trying to kill me, okay?
You're going to get a message from Trinity Brewery next. Like, what are you doing drinking that, man?
No, I got to put them in my fridge. That's the problem. They're sitting in my basement. I didn't have room when I got them. So they'll be on a podcast soon, but definitely shout out to Tridentine. They're awesome.
Yeah, Trevor's amazing. I've met him down here at the Blessed
Oh my
Carl
gosh.
event a couple of
That
times.
was the worst timing to have that.
That was the worst timing.
I feel so bad because I'm like trying to go off screen because I'm not laughing. I'm like literally choking.
There's nothing worse than inhaling a liquid.
Yeah. And especially when you're like describing this terrible situation you're going through. I felt horrible the whole time. Sorry about that, man.
No,
Oh
no worries. But yeah, no, it was so yeah, like I said, my pancreas was like super inflamed. My gallbladder had pretty much stopped working. And so I was in ICU for 5 days. I was on an insulin drip for 24 hours a day for 5 days straight. And even my doctor's like, I've been doing this for a long time. I don't think I've ever had anybody on an insulin drip this long. And I mean, they're taking blood every hour. They're checking your glucose every 30 minutes. And I told everybody, I told some of my buddies, I was like, I lost count at 160 needle sticks. I just stopped counting. I was done.
That's wild. I can't believe they would have you on that long and that it wouldn't have fixed you quicker.
No, and it didn't. It really didn't. And it wasn't. I didn't eat for, I think, for almost 10 days. I didn't eat for almost 10 days. And I tell people, like, I would rather it not come to that, but you got to watch your health. I said, because, it's diabetic ketoacidosis is scary. It is deadly. It can kill you. It will kill you if you don't go to the hospital. My body was already in the process of shutting down. If my wife hadn't prompted me like, hey, you should probably go to the hospital, I probably would have ended up having a heart attack or a stroke. And he told me, because that's what would have happened. He goes, your triglycerides were 3,100.
Oh my goodness.
Normal is like 500 or 400. I don't know what it is. It's like, or under 600 or something like that. Mine was like 3,100.
That's like 6 times.
Yeah. And they'd even comment because when we draw your blood, because your blood is like oozing out. It's like thick. Ugh. Yeah. And I was in really bad shape. It was a real eye-opening experience. And, I came home and I was, they send you home with this packet and it's like how to manage your diabetes. It's not like, hey, how can you try to reverse your diabetes? It's how to manage your diabetes. And so I'm like following this chart and my glucose levels aren't getting any better. And I was like, there's got to be a different way. So I started looking into it and I found this guy, Gary Brecka. He's been all over Rogan and a bunch of different podcasts and stuff. And I heard about the carnivore diet. And I was like, I don't know how that would even work given that it's cholesterol, because our minds have been conditioned to think a certain way with regards to fat and meat. But he showed, Dana White's paperwork and he was close to dying too. And I was really baffled by it. I was like, you know what? Let's give it a shot. So I did. I went ahead and gave it a shot, and it was leading up right to Lent, and which I do a very, very, very strict Lent. And I think that actually kind of got me going. Lent actually has healing properties to it. The deep fasting, so I know a lot of guys will fast from Ash Wednesday until Saturday or Sunday. There's only, water, salt, maybe a cigar to kind of stave off your hunger. And so there's a lot of intense fasting, and I do a lot of intense fasting during Lent. And I really think that actually really got my body on a healing path. And then once I was on a strictly just fish diet during Lent, so no meats at all, no dairy, no cheese, none of that stuff. And I think that actually really helped in its own way. And then once Lent ended, I was like, okay, now I'm going just straight carnivore. I'm going to start introducing beef, steaks, stay on some fish. And
so fish is allowed in the carnivore?
What's that?
Fish is allowed in the carnivore diet?
Oh, yes. Yeah,
just non-breaded, I would imagine, right?
Non-breaded. No, I'm actually really good at grilling salmon. That's one of my specialties, like on the grill. Like I am. I don't like to my own horn, but that's one of my specialties. My family loves my grilled salmon. I make them on the cedar planks, and they come out really good. So, I ate a lot of fish, and then I started introducing meat into my diet, and I just watched my glucose levels just start coming down. And then my doctor called me. She's like, I don't want you taking any more insulin. I was like, actually, I haven't taken insulin in over a month. And she's like, whoa. She's like, really? I'm like, yeah. She's like, well, tell me what you're doing with your diet. Like I said, well, I'm doing the exact opposite of what your food pyramid you guys sent me home with. I'm doing the exact opposite of that. And it actually kind of took her back. She was like, I haven't seen a turnaround this fast. And she goes, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to leave your insulin's active on your profile, but I don't want you taking them.
Just because you need it, in case you
just
need
in case I needed them. And she goes, we're going to follow up in another month. I followed up in another month, and she was like, I'm taking your insulins off. You don't need them anymore. You're good.
That's wild.
And I was like, 3 months. 3 months, I went from 267. Now I'm hovering around 213 to between 213 and 216 is where I hover around right now. And I feel great. I have more energy than I ever have. I do take a couple of supplements. I take a beef liver supplements, beef organ supplements, and I take a good methylated multivitamin and a really good probiotic for my stomach. That's one thing if you do carnivore, you got to be careful with your digestive issues. Drink a lot of water, a lot of salt, and that really helps out with the carnivore diet.
That makes sense. And I saw this joke online. I think it actually is probably legit. Did you never see like a caveman drawing where a guy's like hunting lettuce? They're not hunting for the veggies, the greens, etc. They're going after the wild animals. They're hunting them. They're killing them. They're eating them. It's, the whole village is fed. So. And
that was all grass fed or forage, organic forage, and I tell you, so I have arthritis all over all my joints in my body have arthritis in them. My arthritis has come down a ton.
That's great.
At least by 90% it's come down. I still have my disc issues. My discs are so damaged that they'll protrude into the spinal canal and I can't walk, or I can't hardly get up. That still happens. I can't do nothing about that without really surgery. But I'm trying not to do that. But I've started lifting weights and I've used some straps and stuff to kind of keep me kind of anchored down so I'm not jerking my back around. And that's worked out really well for me. So.
Are you able to wear like a back brace thing that would keep your spine kind of,
Yep, absolutely.
Is that what you generally do?
Yes. I don't actually use the brace anymore. I'm using a weight belt that my son left in there. My son just took it upon himself to take over our garage and turned it into a gym. And he left this weight belt in there. And so I put that weight belt and I tighten it as tight as I can go. And that actually helps out a ton.
Well, good. It sounds like you found some methods of handling the craziness of your injury from years ago at this point.
Yes.
And I definitely can relate with, I've got people that I know that have done the carnivore diet and they all say that pretty much the same thing. Like a lot of things get fixed really quickly because you've cut out some of the things that are damaging to the body.
Yeah, there's so many inflammatory substances that are put into the American diet that it's we're all these foreign substances, and I actually have an app that I use when I go shopping and I scan the barcode and it tells me this is clean, this is not clean, and it'll even highlight in red the bad ingredients on there of what's going to cause inflammation, or bad reactions in your body. And I've just narrowed it down as like, hey, meat, organic, grass-fed, and cheese, grass-fed, usually imported from like New Zealand.
Oh, so you're allowed to eat cheese?
Yes. Yeah. You can eat cheese, you can eat eggs, and as much meat as you can eat. And the goal is to like eat your body weight in grams of protein.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's I've always been fascinated by the carnivore diet because it's like I feel like at some point you kind of get sick of the meat, but everybody I've talked to is like, no, you don't really get sick of the meat, but you come up with really creative ways. You really get creative with how you use like your fats and various other things.
Yeah, I actually have a buddy of mine that's like, he goes actually he was doing the carnivore and then he started introducing like vegetables again, and he goes, I haven't seen a big difference. He goes, I'm like slowly reintroducing certain foods. Like he won't do more than one food a month new back into the diet to make sure that he's still maintaining, and keeping the goals that he has set for himself. And, I have a couple of times added some like bell peppers, into a meal, just, kind of change it up a little bit. And then I go back and I just kind of stick to the carnivore. You have to do it in a way where you're going to stay motivated and you're not going to get burned out on it. And I think that's really important too. Like, it's okay. If you're going to put some vegetables or if you want to have a little bit of pasta, and that was crazy. So I actually had my first pasta on Easter and it did nothing.
Since you started the diet or overall?
What's that?
Since you started the diet, I assume?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, on Easter Sunday, patron saint, his wife makes this amazing dill pickle or dill. It's a dill pasta salad. And I was like, man, that smells so good. I want to try some. I tried it. I had my glucose monitor on. Didn't do anything to me. So like
That's
one
amazing.
day where you kind of introduce some foods that maybe you wouldn't typically eat anymore, doesn't do anything to me. But again, it's all about consistency and discipline and just like, I'm going to eat like this just one day, one small serving, and then I'm not doing it again for a long time. And it's helped me stay consistent. It's helped me stay motivated. And but I don't do that very often. I actually have developed a phobia of carbohydrates because I like the biggest adjustment after my hospitalization was learning what it feels like to be normal again. Like when my glucose levels would come into the normal range, I actually felt sick. I thought I felt sick. I felt like I needed to eat something. And it wasn't. It was just my body feeling normal again. And it took about 2 months of doing that to finally learn, like, oh, no, this is just what normal feels like. I didn't know what normal felt like for like 5 years.
That's, it's funny. The American diet, I think, has damaged the perception of what full and what a meal is anymore. When you go to a restaurant, and I learned this kind of through like the habits of my own parents and whatnot, but it's like people want a full plate, whatever size that plate is, they want a full plate. And a full plate isn't always a healthy meal. It just flat out isn't. And it's hard to gauge unless your parents teach you growing up how to find a healthy amount of food to go on your plate to eat for a meal.
That's right.
And caloric, the calorie amount is one part of that, but it's not every part of that. And, processed foods will eventually make you sick. If you eat them all the time, every day, doesn't work very well. I'm really on a kick of getting more natural with how I eat. I'm not like perfect. I still eat American cheese out of the, Kraft American cheese. Nothing beats that when you just want like a grilled cheese real quick and you're like cooking, whatever. But I'm trying, I'm trying not to eat the processed food so much. My wife's doing a great job with all of that stuff, cooking the sourdough. We're trying to smoke meats here and there. Whatever we can do to have something more what people used to eat, not like what we eat now, which is garbage.
That's right. That's what it is. A lot of it is just pure garbage, and you just keep it like the whole motto with eating clean is like one ingredient food. Ingredient meat. Ingredient milk. That's it. It's really just that simple. Chicken, pork. It's just keep it super simple. And if you do that, even if you don't do the carnivore diet, like I said, the carnivore diet may not be for everybody.
It definitely doesn't work for everybody I've talked to, but most people it does.
Yes, for most people it has. I've met very few people that have even online that it doesn't work for. But I tell you what, it works for me. And eating the organic, if you can, again, eat within whatever you can afford. If you can't afford grass fed organic, hey, don't eat it. Just stick to the meat. But I can tell you this from having inflammation and having the arthritis and stuff. On this past Wednesday, we actually went to my daughter's graduation. We left. The only restaurant open, their graduation started at 8. And we live in a northern Dallas suburb. So, there's a lot of kids that are graduating. So the only place that was open was Applebee's. And I was like, all right, I guess we'll go eat there. So the whole family goes there. And I was like, you know what? I'll have a sirloin steak. Obviously, it's not going to be grass-fed. It's not going to be organic. I ate that. The next day, I felt terrible. I was inflamed, wasn't feeling well. Like I felt really sick the whole day.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. If you can find a more natural farm to buy your stuff from, like I know people have like raw milk's got a bad name online, but I really think raw milk is better tasting. I always felt better when I would drink it. And I'm okay risking that there might be some problem in one of these raw milks before, but obviously mileage may vary. But I'm a firm believer that if you can get something closer to the source, it's going to be better for you. And I looked into why we have pasteurized milk, and it's a little bit confusing, but it comes back to when they'd have cows grazing in like the city area next to like various plants. And long story short, there was like I think it was like a barley processing thing, and like all the cast-offs from this place was getting dropped into where the cows were grazing. And so you have like this nasty bluish hue milk coming out of these cows. And the only way to fix that was to pasteurize the milk. and there was babies dying from drinking it, and so they came up with the pasteurization process. So basically, what you're saying is you took poisoned milk and cleaned it, versus, if you just test raw milk, it could be just as good, probably better nutrition wise. And now I'm just like, you know what? I think everything is a conspiracy these days. That's where I'm at. Every
I'm right there with you on that.
Everything's a conspiracy these days. I just don't see why we would not go to the source and fix the source rather than clean up something that's poisonous.
No, absolutely. That's why I'm real big on the Joel Salatin method of like regenerative farming. If you haven't looked into that, that's the way to go. And that's, he was actually rated by the FDA and the FBI, I think.
Is that the guy? That's the guy that happened to? He's like an Amish farmer or something. Wasn't he an Amish farmer? Or
I'm not sure if he's Amish. I'm not sure what he is, but
just a raw farmer though, right?
He's just a farmer who came up with that regenerative method, or he rediscovered it, or whatever it was, and he ended up getting raided, and they called him an eco-terrorist, and now he's a consultant for RFK up there in the up in the administration, and his I will live and die with our homestead by what he's put out there.
It's funny. I think every group that got raided by the FBI during Biden's presidency probably means it was a good group. The Catholic Church, regenerative farming. If you got raided by the FBI in the previous administration, you're probably doing okay.
You're doing okay. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Oh man, I hope that test never comes again. But if you were part of that group, the Catholic Church,
it's absolute honor to be part of the no face, the no diaper face. Yeah. Never did. Yeah, I actually got chased through a local Kroger during COVID. This lady was chasing me through the store. It's like, yes, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You need to put your mask on. And the store manager actually ended up having to intervene and like get her like away from me. And but I had a good relationship with the butcher there, so like they knew who I was, and I was like, look, I'm not going to comply. And he's like, no, you're cool, man. He goes, you come in here. He goes, you give us a lot of business. He goes, so I'm not going to say anything. So, but yeah, he ended up having to peel this lady off because everywhere I was going, I was just ignoring her. I was walking through it, and she's just yapping in my ear the whole entire way. I'm like, look, I'm not leaving, so you can continue to make a fool of yourself, or you can just leave me alone.
The funniest thing that still happens, and I almost feel sad for people, is the lone person in a car wearing a mask. And I'm just like,
all one today.
Just like, why are you doing this to yourself? Like, nobody, like, what are you gaining from this? Like, there's no logical reason under any circumstance to do that.
And to speak on that, what really baffled me during COVID were the military personnel that were like veterans. Like, I understand if you were in, but like if you paid attention during your CBR, chemical, biological, radiological warfare studies, like they give you lessons in how pathogens and how gas masks, like that's the whole part of like when you see boot camp videos of them going into the gas chamber. You go in, you have a rubber seal, right? You're in there. They put the gas tablets, the CS gas tablets on there. And you get to understand that your gas mask works. It works. It's going to do its job as long as it's properly sealed. The moment you break that seal, things are going to go bad. And to my, I guess with my division is we had a girl that went into the gas. This is a funny boot camp story. I got to tell this one. This is hilarious. So me and a bunch of guys were a week ahead of our division. And so we got to witness our division go through the gas chamber when it was their turn. And so what happened is they go in, and what you do is you put your hand over the air intake valve and you breathe in, and your face mask collapses. And if it doesn't retract, that means that your seal is good. Well, she did hers, but I guess the leak wasn't quite detectable. Oh, so they go ahead and put the tablets on there. The room fills up with the gas. And all of a sudden, she's like in the third row, and all of a sudden, she just like falls down, starts writhing, and rips off her gas mask. And then I was in a co-ed division, so it was girls and guys. The girls next to her panic. Their gas masks were perfectly fine, but they panic and they rip off their gas masks. and it causes this mass panic situation.
Oh no.
And so it was complete chaos. Our RDCs were so mad. They just relentlessly worked us out for like 2 days afterwards. But you get to understand that in the Navy, we call it the confidence chamber. They want you to have confidence in your gas mask. But you get to understand, like, okay, look, if you don't have the proper filtration on these things, the pathogens are going to get in there. So from the very beginning with the face mask, I'm like, no, I'm never putting one on unless it's a full blown canister. I'm not going to put it on. It makes no sense whatsoever. These little face cloth ones are definitely not working. So I was like, I'm not complying with this. I'm never going to put it on. I got kicked out of the VA hospital here in Plano, Texas, because I refused to put on a mask. Like, you guys understand that we were trained in CBR training. Like it wasn't like in-depth training, but it was enough for us to have common sense to know that this doesn't work. So yeah, the whole gas.
Only thing those masks did that I could see visibly was the people that talk with and spit the whole time they're talking. It blocked them from spitting on me, and that's about as good as it got for me.
That's about as good as it gets. It's not going to block anything from going into your mask.
Right.
Yeah, that was the whole COVID thing. That was something. That was something to live through.
Yeah. No, I will. 0 out of 10 would not do it again.
Yeah.
0 out of 10. Yeah, I struggle with that. That sucked. It was one of the worst times in my life, but it brought me closer to my faith. I feel like almost every bad situation you go through, this is why the book of Job is so important, brings you closer to your faith. And if anything, the it just brings us back to the redemptive suffering, like the stuff we went through, like whatever it is you went through during that time period. And I went through a lot of things I don't want to get into on here. It really did make me go back to my faith, my basics, relearn the foundations. That's what actually I started listening to Taylor Marshall a lot, so shout out to him. And everybody who says he makes people go State of Acontas can suck it, because he really brought me closer to my faith during that time.
Absolutely. Yeah, he worked wonder. Like I knew I was watching his podcast before. I didn't even know he went to my parish. I was on safety team duty one day, and all of a sudden I see him and his family walking. I'm like, hey, I know that guy. So
you're like, you've been identified as a target. No.
Yeah, that's how I ended up actually meeting him, was through the safety team, was watching coming in and out of mass, and people, they villainize him so much, I'm like, you don't know him or see him like I see him, and you would just see him after mass, and he would be sitting on the bench reading the catechism to his daughter. It's like, you guys paint him in this one light, but none of you actually know him. Like, I actually hang out with him almost every week. I've hung out with his family. I've been out to his ranch for multiple days. I'm like, you guys don't know him, and he's been vilified. And it's always fun. I always joke around with him. Like, if anybody's going to start a podcast, the first episode, right? If you want to be popular, trash Taylor Marshall. Like that's how you're going to get your following going. It's just amazing. New podcast, some of these, Lofton types, they start up and they go right after Marshall. And that's kind of how they get their clicks,
Yeah, when I started this one, I had to think about that for a long. Not trashing Taylor Marshall, that's not what I'm talking about at all. But I wouldn't do that. But what I was getting at was, I listened to a lot of them, and I never want to be that guy who chases clicks by condemning a person. Mm-hmm. I'd rather talk about an action somebody took and why it was right or wrong, rather than a person and attacking their character and vilifying somebody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because
it really says a lot about somebody if they just go out and just attack somebody like that.
It's like there's a huge difference between the person who's like, let's just say you're in a terrible situation and somebody holds up a hammer, they're about to come down on somebody, right? Your two options are grab the arm, pull the hammer away, right? Condemn the action, or kill the person, right? Probably want to grab the arm, pull the hammer away rather than kill the person, right? I mean, that makes sense to me anyway.
Yep. Use
the force necessary, not the maximum force, right? Isn't that the idea?
That's absolutely the idea. And that's one of our big things on our safety team at our parish is, de-escalation. De-escalation above everything else. And we have officers on our property, get them involved first. They're law enforcement officers. if they're not available, then obviously we have to make decisions on the fly and use the appropriate action that's consistent with the action that's being directed at us or the parish or whatever, to get things to stop.
Now, what kind of what would you recommend for parishes that want to add a safety team to their I don't know, their mass, whatever they got to do? What would you recommend?
Well, I always say talk to your pastor first.
Obviously, yeah.
He
would have to approve that, right?
Yeah.
He's going to with a safety team.
Yeah, he's gonna have to sign off on it. Obviously, you want to go down that path and have a good relationship with your pastor, and then the guys that are overly zealous, I would be very cautious with allowing them on the team. Where we don't want a bunch of John Waynes or Doc Hollidays or Johnny Ringos on the team. You don't want guys say when. No, we don't want that. You want good, even keeled, mild mannered men that are willing to put themselves in uncomfortable situations, because when you're dealing with a possible suspicious person or a possible suspicion or a possible threat, you want to have guys that can think in a manner that's not going to panic, that's going to look for ways, like I said, to de-escalate, and having a good teamwork mentality is key. So just having a good leader, like our head of our safety, I won't name him. I don't know if people want to be named, but he's a former Marine Corps martial arts instructor, and he is, just even keeled, easygoing guy, and he is a fantastic leader for our team. And he really epitomizes, like, that's what you're looking for when you're starting a team. You got to have a good leader. And Tom, before us, and I'm pretty sure he wouldn't mind me naming him, but Tom was instrumental in getting our team put together, getting the right guys on the team. And then Abel kind of came in after he stepped down and really streamlined us into making things just operate a lot smoother and a lot easier. But, just choosing the right guys, that's the biggest, I think that's the biggest part of it, is choosing the right guys and training, training that, we cannot be shy. We cannot shy away from training. We've actually gone through and used our parish to do scenario-based training. Because if you don't practice, you're not going to know how to handle the situation. And then just having knowledge, doing a lot of research, something I like to do since I'm retired. I like to do a lot of research, and just, the training that I received in the military. In the Navy, you are the protectors of your ship. You travel in foreign countries, so you have to, pay attention, during our, what they call safety stand downs, and you get to learn about counterterrorism techniques and stuff like that. And you know what to look for. Those are the biggest parts of a safety team that are the most important. And the members, the guys that you choose, that's really the determining factor whether or not you're going to be successful or not.
That makes sense. Sorry, Tim Adams is still trying to kill me here, slowly but surely. I just can't seem to kick this choking habit, which, matter of fact, Tridentine Brewing has actually liked and retweeted our stream here. So that,
nice.
He must have heard me choke on Tim Adams.
Shout out to you, Trevor.
But anyways, yeah, it makes sense. If you have very zealous people, then they are going to cause a problem. That's just how things go. Or if somebody's too timid, they're not going to act. So something in between those two characteristics is what you want. Somebody more pragmatic.
Yes. Yeah, that's the biggest thing. And having the backing of our priest has always been, a big backbone. We have Father C at our parish, and he's not afraid to get involved if we have a parishioner that's being a little bit disorderly or out of, that hardly ever happens. I always tell people, like, everybody starts a safety team with this idea, like, oh, there's going to be a mass shooting event. Like you understand, like, I've been doing this for 8 years at Modern Day now, and 99% of what I deal with is a medical emergency.
That makes sense.
It's a lady fainting, an old person falling. Like, that's mostly what I deal with, or a toddler spills a cup during the middle of mass. I got to go mop it up in front of everybody. Like, those are my top duties that I deal with, and so, it's not this. I mean, you have to be prepared for the worst, but you have to understand that a lot of it's going to be not that. A lot of it is just I think the biggest part of having a good team is making sure that your church is viewed as a hard target. Yeah. You don't want to be a soft target. You want to be a hard target. So a lot of parishes will be like, oh, we don't want guys wearing earpieces because it just looks a certain way. It might be off-putting to people. I'm like, no, it really isn't. Like, you don't understand, like, people, when they see us, yes, they do see an authoritative figure. Like, okay, this guy has it figured out. I can go ask him a question. I don't think I've ever encountered anybody who's been off-put by our team. I personally like to be in the vestibule area. So you walk into Mater Dei, it's a big glass vestibule. You're literally in a glass box, and you get to smile and greet everybody that comes in, and that's the biggest thing that we love to do is to be welcoming. I can pick out a new person at Mater Dei in a half a second. For the moment they come into my field of vision, like they've never been here before, and they come in, they have this puzzled look, and to be able to help them, like, okay, well, here's the propers on the paper. This is in English. This is the Latin. Here's a red book. This is how you kind of follow along. Hey, you know what? It's your first time here. The chapel's full, but I'm going to go find some chairs and throw them in the confessional area and make sure you have a place to sit down. Ask some young gentlemen to move. Like, hey, can you get, these people are new here. Can you mind standing alongside the wall? That's the big part of a safety team, and so people are
you guys kind of fill in a lot of usher duties then too.
So the way we have ours set up is we have safety, we have ushers. We're all under one umbrella, but we have different functions. So like ushers are just ushers. They only do ushering things. Safety team guys, we're hybrid. We have to do both because we're willing to, in the event of an emergency, we have said, I'll step up. I'll do CPR on somebody, or if there is a actual threat to the parish, I will do everything in my power to try and help out.
And did this come up because of all the church attacks that were happening in like the Texas area in general for several years there?
Okay, so sorry, my screen went off. Let's say that again one more time.
I remember like years ago, there was like a series of church attacks in Texas. Is that what kind of brought this about?
So I can't speak to the exact thing that made it led to the founding of our team, but we did have an incident at our parish.
Oh, geez. Okay.
And it led to the founding of our safety team. And yeah, so unfortunately, I can't speak as to what the details of that are.
I just didn't know if it was because of an outside influence or an inside influence. It sounds like it's more of an inside influence.
Yeah, it was. We have a little bit of an incident, and our former head of safety is like, we need to, he's like, we need to start a safety team, and we did, and he did, and he built it up to what it was, and we've taken it even a step further now with our current head of safety, and so. I'll tell you this, though, during the COVID time, we definitely stepped up our training in discussing like the cycles of a terrorist attack. Like, a lot of people don't know what the cycle of a terrorist attack looks like. And so to actually have a meeting on Saturday morning, we all come in and, sit up and talk about these, hey, this is what you look for. And there's some things that you can't teach. And I tell people all the time, like, with regards to, a certain other religion that's a threat to us, you have to be able to, I can't teach you how to look for those things. It's just based off of my experience and being in certain parts of the world. I can spot things that you won't spot, but I can train you how to look for somebody who may be up to no good, who may be scouting, doing the preliminary, probing of our location. But I found that, with our team being the way that it is, we dress a certain way. We have our earpieces in, you'll see us communicating. You'll see us walking up and down the aisles. I don't really think anybody's going to come in and really try and mess with us.
There's easier targets, that's for sure.
Yeah, we're a hard target. It would be an absolute really bad idea to go to try to do something in our parish. It would be a really bad idea. And like I said, and hats off to our officers that are on duty there. They're phenomenal. We love them to death. Actually, one of them just retired, and he's been with us for quite a few years, probably 8 or 9 years. He did in his off duty time. He comes in and watches over the parish.
Now, does it affect your ability to attend mass, or do you go to multiple masses then to support the same?
So we receive dispensation to where if we're on duty, it does count towards mass, but our pastor is very adamant, like you should attend mass. Either the preview, come to an earlier mass, or the mass, after that, go and actually sit down. Especially if you're the vestibule guy, because you can't hear anything. You're in the vestibule.
Yeah.
So he highly encourages us to attend mass at a different mass.
That's good. Yeah, I was curious about that because I would imagine it'd be very distracting.
Yes.
I feel like, and I know this is not comparable, but the closest thing I can say I did when I was younger was lifeguarding. I can't imagine trying to keep people safe in a pool and also pay attention to mass. It feels like that would be impossible.
It is impossible. It is impossible. It really is. I mean, even in the so we have different posts inside the parish. I won't speak to where they're exactly at. I mean, if you ever visit, you'll see them. but you're still you're trying to listen to mass, but at the same time you're watching everybody. You're having to keep an eye on everything, because we've seen so many instances where, the activists will come in, they'll sit down, and then they'll wait, halfway through service, and they'll get up and start shouting stuff. We saw that all across the nation. Now, we've never experienced that, but it's like you have to be on guard for it. So you're never really fully focused in on mass. So really getting in and taking time to go to a different mass is very important.
Now, I have a personal story. You might get a kick out of this. No, I'm not going to give any names. I don't want to give anybody away, but there was an event at a parish near me. It actually made the local paper, so that was kind of cool. But it was like, woman saves priest from knife attack, and it's like, whoa! And then come to find out, it was my wife's grandma had walked up to this knife assailant and whipped the knife out of her hands with a purse, just boom, knocked it right out, and like, get away from the priest. And I was like, what? Like,
that is awesome. That's a great story.
I was like, really? Like, and then apparently she just didn't bother to tell anybody in the family, period. Just, it's like weeks later, it was in the paper, and my mother-in-law was like, why didn't you tell us you did this? Yeah, whatever.
I'm storing up treasures in heaven.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that's just like the attitude of that generation. That's like, no big deal,
No big deal. That's right. That's right. But yeah, it's a pleasure. I love doing it. It's my way of being able to give back to our parish community. I've been doing it for 8 years. I actually just took off my first Easter Vigil mass. I didn't do safety team for Easter Vigil this year, and I was like, not going to do it. I'm just going to sit down and enjoy mass and not have to worry about orchestrating everything. And so yeah, this year I actually got a chance to take my first year off in 8 years.
Yeah, I bet that was nice to not. I mean, maybe it wasn't. I don't know. Would it be stressful to sit there and be worried about it?
It is.
Yeah,
it is, because you're sitting there going, okay, but at the same time, it's like we have such a great team that they're going to get it done. But being like, I don't know, maybe it's just the ex-military in me that's just like, if I'm not doing it, I have to see it being done to know that it's being. It's I don't know. It's military guys. We're kind of weird when it comes to that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I can't relate to that, but the lifeguard years get me always like, where's the kid? Where's that kid? Like all over the place, and
yes.
It's not the same thing, but that's the closest I could relate to that.
Yeah, no, it's the same. The mass crowds, especially at Modern Day, since COVID. Since COVID, I mean, our population exploded after COVID. So, I mean, on Easter Vigil, I mean, you can have over 1,000 people at Modern Day.
I was just gonna say, is there a lot of TLMs in the area, or is that
no?
That's
we got two.
Two.
You think about how big the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex is. We have two. We have one in Fort Worth and one in Dallas.
That's crazy. That's like nothing. That's barely.
We're in desperate need of a new church. We need a new, bigger church, like at least 1,000-seater would be great.
Yeah.
Our priests are just overworked right now. We have to do 8 masses a day.
That's
what we're doing. We're doing 8 masses a day. Sometimes we have a mass going on in the chapel and a mass going on in the what was formerly the parish hall.
Yeah, there's a ICKSP in the Detroit Archdiocese. That's where I'm at, is the Detroit Archdiocese up in Michigan. and that's like one of the only consistently TLM masses, but there's a few in the area. Although we did finally get a hammer down from the Archbishop implementing Traditionis Custodes. It was all over the news. I don't need to rehash that. Everybody knows what's going on. But it's interesting because the implementation is slightly different than what was conveyed. And I don't want to go into details and get anybody in trouble, but it's more interesting than you think.
Yeah, it seems like it varies from place to place depending on the bishop, And,
it is kind of different.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, the kind of the fruit of that is that it's forcing us to really have to band together and rely on each other, and that's I'm a real big proponent of keep businesses, support your parish businesses, your parish business owner. You'll be surprised who the parish business owners are. You got doctors, you got dentists, you got plumbers, you got roofers, and so that's. I think that's going to be one of the fruits that's going to come out of this is the Catholic subsidiary. That's going to be a huge deal. That's going to be really critical for us to survive as Catholics together is by banding together.
Now, did you want to get into this then, since you kind of brought it up already?
Oh yeah, Galatas. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. We can get into that. Yeah, that's so this is our website. My friend Sam is the brainiac behind this. So Galatas is short for Galatians. Galatas, Galatians 6:10, do good unto all people, but especially those into the house of the Lord. And that is, we should absolutely support each other first. As Catholics, we should do that. And so we came up with the website for this. And what we do is we created a website where you can go find your particular parish. So if you go down to the Dallas area, you can click on there, and you can go to Mater Dei Latin Mass Parish right there. You can click on that, and you can see all of the different businesses that we have there at the parish that are currently signed up right now. And it's actually free to use. You can list your business on our website for free. Yeah, the tree service one is great. The dumpster rental, been there, dump that. They are phenomenal.
Been there, dump that.
Been there, dump that. Yeah, good Catholic family. Oh, they're an amazing Catholic family. They came through in a big pinch for me. I needed a dumpster. I needed it quick and for a clean out, and they got it to me like the next day. It was so awesome. But they go to our parish. I didn't know they were there. We had like a couple of roofers. I didn't know he was there. And so like COVID, really put a hurt on a lot of local businesses. A lot of local businesses went out, especially if you were in an area that was like locked down, And so we wanted to create something where you could go and support your parish businesses first. And if the service you're looking for is not available, you can go back out to your main region and find another parish that has the service you're looking for. And so this is something that we created with that Catholic subsidiary in mind. And you can see you can go to see all parishes, and you can see all the different parishes. If you go over to your right, there you go. You can use that link too, and you can kind of scroll through there, and we have all the pictures of the different parishes on there. You can just click on services and look for particular services. We have local listings. We have national listings. So if you have like a national thing you're doing, you can look at. We have everything in there. You can see we have photography, accounting, artisan goods, auto services, dentists. If it's listed on there, that means there's an actual listing for that business. So if we don't have a particular service, you don't see it on there, it's because we don't have anybody signed up for that yet. But this is something that we think is going to be necessary for our survival. We know that persecution's coming. It's going to come, and we need to do our best to support each other. And this is a way that we can do it. You can sign up for it for free and support the people at your parish. And even this website was actually created by Daniel. He's actually at our parish, and so he actually helped design this website for us. So we put our money where our mouth was. So this website was actually designed by a Catholic.
There you go. Yeah, and I think this is something that needs to be done, because how many people do you go to church with and you have no idea what they do?
So many, that's the thing. I'm like the door guy, and I know a ton of people. I can't tell you what 90% of them do, or maybe 80% of them do, for a living.
They walk in the door with a name tag that says, "Hi, I'm a carpenter," or like whatever else.
Exactly. And this is, like I said, it's nationwide. It's really easy. If your region's not listed, you can go in there. It shoots us an email. You can sign up. You can still sign up for it. It'll shoot us a message right to my phone. Actually, me and Sam we have our phones on. It'll give us a notification. Hey, this is new, and we'll go in and adjust the website and get it all added in for you. And we'll even help you put your little ad together. If you need help putting an ad together, hey, we'll help you and put an ad together for you.
This is what it looks like when you go to click on it. It's almost like business cards.
Yeah, and you can click on any one of those, and you can get their information. And the cool thing is like you can actually see if you're the business owner, you can see how many people have clicked on your ad, so you can see how many people are actually looking at your ad, and keep track of it. If you're like a real small business, say that you have a teenage daughter that does babysitting, right? And she doesn't have money for a web page. Well, guess what? You get your own custom URL, so you can list your Galatas URL on your business card. And guess what? Now you have a little business website where it has your phone number, your email, your contact, and a description of what you do and the services you provide.
That is actually very useful. I know a bunch of people in the area I live in that would probably love to have something like this.
Yeah, well, we'd love to send you some. We have some magnets. We have some flyers. I can send some literature out there. We have a bunch of magnets I have magnets that I've handed out at the Blessed Carl event. I have some on my refrigerator. It has a QR code on it, and you can actually scan it on your phone and pull the website right up.
Neat. And for those that are listening on audio, I don't know why you're not watching, but here we go. It is GALATAS6.com. I probably should have led with that so you wouldn't hear us talking about this whole time without being able to look through it yourself. But again, it's GALATAS6.com. And that's something Joey's been involved with. You said you're the co-founder, or?
I'm the co-founder, yes. I'm the co-founder. Okay. Sam is the one who came up with the idea.
And it's very easy. How does it work? Does it work well on phones too?
Yeah, it works great on phones. Yeah, it's really streamlined. Very simple. We kind of took the idea, like for the design of it, we kind of mimicked a little bit of like Craigslist a little bit.
Yeah.
It's real streamlined. It's real easy to navigate. And you can click on all the different, I know Kansas City has some.
I'm more interested in the Detroit Metro at this
point.
You
go. Oh, there you go. There's a business consultant there in your area there.
Yeah. It's a little ways away from me, but yes, this is somebody that's actually near me. That is for sure.
Yes, it's really cool. And the cool thing is, like, when you go to the website for the first time, it'll take you to the homepage. And then once you select your region, the next time you visit the webpage, it'll take you right back to your region again. So you don't have to like scroll through and find, if you're, down at the bottom, you don't have to like scroll around, looking for it.
Oh man. Yeah. You guys get down to the nitty gritty with various businesses. Like this is window cleaners. Yeah. There's got a lot of categories.
Yeah. A lot of categories, we don't want to have too many categories, but if there's a category in there that's not listed, we can have it added to the website in just a matter of minutes.
You got a Substack associated with this?
Yep. Yeah. Sam actually handles our Substack there, and he'll post things from time to time on there. It's something that he came up with, and we're really proud of it. And like I said, it's free to use. Now we do have some paid ones. If you want like a premium listing, big ad, we do have some paid ones we can do, and we're taking that money and reinvesting it right back into the website. We have some ideas of some upgrades we'd like to do, but we just don't have the money for that right now. We're just still kind of getting going. And, we were getting going. I had these health issues that kind of popped up, so it's kind of delayed some things, but it's up, it's running. And, if anybody would like to receive any magnets or flyers on it, feel free to shoot me an email, or you can email us through the website and reach out to us, and we'd be glad to help you out in any way possible.
Cool. Yeah. So yeah, go check it out. GALATAS6.com. And Joey's involved. So check it out.
Yeah, that's a real fun project. We really hope it takes off. And I think in the future, one of the things I really want to do is actually get out to the homesteaders.
The homesteaders, really? What do you want
to
do
get
with
out
the
to
homesteaders?
Yeah, like so out by where Taylor's place is at, there's one of the guys I met on a retreat. His name is Stan, and Stan actually sells pork, and they're the American guinea hogs. This pork looks like beef. The meat is so red, it's well marbled. And this is what pork is supposed to look like. They rebranded pork back in the 70s or 80s to the new white meat or something like that. They basically bred all the nutrients out of the pork. And so me and Patron Saint of Barbecue at the first retreat we had, Stan brings this pork in, and we made this what we call discada, Mexican discada. And it has all kinds of different meats. It has beef and pork. And so we got to try some of Stan's pork. Oh, it was so amazing. I was like, it would be great to get out there and videotape, Stan as he, shows us his area, shows us, post it up on YouTube, and show people like, this is what he's providing. This is something we're hoping for in the future, is to get something like that going where we can highlight different businesses and show you the work that they put into their craft, and Stan has a few different things going on at his place. I have another guy, Matthew Chrisman, and he makes these custom fire pits. Man, they are just absolutely beautiful, intricate. And there's just so much talent within our communities, and we need to support them. We need to support these people. I know Matthew has like 8 or 10 kids. I mean, he's got a lot of kids. And this is going to help him put food on the table. This is going to help him not be so dependent on his 9-to-5. If things get shut down again, hey, guess what? Maybe he doesn't need that 9-to-5 anymore. Maybe now he can stay home and make fire pits and sell those online. And we need to be supportive of that.
Absolutely. If you know somebody with a talent in your community and you could hire them instead of hiring, some random big company somewhere, try the local first. You might be surprised at the quality or whatever, whether it's meat or whatever it is, the quality might outpace anything you can get anywhere else. You never know until you try it.
Absolutely. And then, like I said, and this is something that's not, this isn't coming from Joey. This is coming straight from Scripture. Yeah. Galatians 6:10. It's right there. Support your brethren. Support the household of the Lord, the members of the household of the Lord. And those are fellow Catholics. And we need to really take that verse to heart and look out for each other, because in the future, we're going to be all that we have. There's going to be a time coming where, and COVID should have been a great lesson for that. Guess what? Hey, you can't come into my grocery store because you're not, you don't have a certain thing in your body, These are things we're going to have to deal with, and we're going to stand on principle. We're not going to comply. We're not going to give in to these outrageous demands and experimental therapies and stuff like that. We're not going to give into this stuff. And so we're all that we're going to have, and we need to support each other in any way that we can. And this is a great way to do it. And there's a lot of different Catholic websites like this out there, but I don't think we found any of them that are free. I don't think we found any of them that are as streamlined and easy to navigate as ours, and as easy to sign up for as ours.
So is there any, how does the website support itself? Is there a way that this website?
The only way that we're going to be able to do more with the website in the future is if we get some paid advertisements listed on there. And, Sam has put his own money into this. And he said, he goes, whether this succeeds or fails, this is going to be something that I want to do for Holy Mother Church.
Okay. That's cool.
This is something we're doing for the church, and at the end of the day, the website's already up. It's already running. It's easy for us, and we're going to continue. We're going to continue to if somebody signs up for it, we're going to continue to get out there and make sure that the listings are up, that you can access those listings. We truly believe in this project, and I think it's necessary. We really think that it's necessary. And so we're going to continue to push this website out there and to get people signed up for it.
Very cool. Yeah, I appreciate that you guys are doing that. Do you have a category for dad with a webcam?
Taylor might fight you for that spot, man.
I was talking about him.
He may put a copyright on that statement already.
Oh man, I was talking about him. I wasn't talking about me. I ain't gonna jump into that space. He's got it pretty locked down.
Yeah, no, he's great. No, yeah, dad with a webcam. That'd be a great category for all the podcasters. Get you, get Taylor and Kennedy and all those guys on there. There's a lot of great ones out there. No, there's so many great personalities out there, and a lot of them get attacked unjustly, but they're all great, man. And I really admire what they do. It takes a lot of courage to get on a camera like this, put yourself out there, and to do this for the church. At the end of the day, whether at the end we end up being right or wrong, we're standing on principle, we're standing on tradition, we're standing on scripture, we're defending the church, we're pushing the faith out there, and we're called to do this. We have to be bold in our faith, and there's been times, I'm very vocal about my faith on social media. And there's been so many times I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to stop. And every time that this has crossed my mind, I get a message from somebody. It's like, hey, man, I really respect your views. I'm not Catholic, but I really respect that you're so passionate. You obviously truly believe in what you say. And I just wanted to thank you. Like that's really cool that you do that. I'm not that bold. I could never talk about the faith like you do, even though it's not Catholic, and that boldness, it does produce fruits. I have a cousin that I offended, my cousin Easton. I love her to death. I think I kind of offended her a couple of years ago, and she stopped talking to me. And then out of the blue, she contacted me about a month and a half ago, and she's like, "I'm becoming Catholic."
Those are always the best messages.
Thank you for telling me the truth. And now we message we message probably 10, 15 times a day at least. She's asking questions. I'm helping her through the catechism, and she'll come into the church next Easter, and go out there and watch. And that's what it is. And I think for me, my grandfather, my mom's father, really set that example. And we go back to the suffering thing. He had 4 heart attacks in 3 days. He died twice, once for 9 minutes. And when he came back, he was so mad. He was like, I saw my mom, I saw my brother, I saw my dad. Like, he saw all his relatives that had died. And he was like, if I ever die again, do not bring me back. I was so happy. And they gave him like 6 months to live. His heart was so damaged. And he ended up living that was in 88, 89. He didn't die till 2009. So
wow, that's a long
he went above and beyond. But, he suffered so much. He had amputations. He was diabetic, had heart disease. And you never once heard him complain about it. The only thing you would hear coming from his room from time to time, he would be moaning. He'd be in so much pain. And he'd be just saying, God, have mercy on me. God, have mercy on me. And that made a big impact. I didn't talk about that earlier. I feel bad because my grandfather, that really made an impact on me with suffering. It was like, man, he really embraced that cross and wore it with honor. And he evangelized so many people to the point where a year after he died, this random guy shows up at my grandmother's house. She's like, who is this guy knocking on my door? It's a little bitty one light town. And she decides to answer it. And the guy had come all the way from Mexico just to thank her, because my grandfather years and years back had gone to a prison and ministered there to him and told him about the faith. The guy leaves prison, goes back home to Mexico, turns his life around, has a wife and children, and had heard about my grandfather had died, and he came to thank her.
That's amazing. Like the impact, like the things we do, you never know what the impact's going to be.
You don't. You really don't. We plant seeds all the time, and I tell my kids all the time, like, be vocal about your faith. They go to a classical academy. And my youngest son, his name is Alex. He is. I think there could be a vocation there. I don't know. He's like, I always tell people, like, he's the heart and soul of our family. He's so joyous and so happy, and he doesn't meet a stranger. but he is bold about his faith. He is not afraid. Like, he's like trying to convert, this Hindu person, him and his friends. He's like, well, Dad, he said he believed like in thousands of God, but now he says he only believes in like 6. I'm like, hey, only 5 more to go. But he's amazing. So bold about his faith. And I always tell him, like, just keep doing that. You don't know when these seeds are going to blossom, and even me being a cradle Catholic, I left the faith, but my grandparents made such an impact on me. My grandmothers, they disappeared twice a day my whole life as a child. Like, where do they disappear to during the day? Well, they were in the back room praying their rosaries.
That's awesome. I think one of the things, though, that they had that didn't translate well was the quiet faith. You know what I mean? Because they weren't out loud with it. I don't know what caused that to be that way, but I never really saw my grandma doing anything religious outside of church. And come to find out after she passed back in 2017, I mean, she led a very prayerful life that I never heard of. Like, you just didn't see it. It was so quiet. And I mean, we can learn something from that humble quietness that a lot of these, a couple generations back had. But at the same time, I want my kids to see the faith in the forefront of what I'm doing. I want it to be first and foremost, like, faith is in the what's that? How do I say that? Faith is in the front. It's not in the back. It's not in some back room somewhere. You don't want to be pharisaical about it, obviously, but at the same time, you want to make sure your kids know that we're doing it for a reason, right?
Exactly. No,
we don't want it to be so quiet that nobody sees it.
No, exactly. That's exactly right. And I'll say this to the men out there that, get involved with your parish. Be an usher, be a safety team member. If your church has a team, you don't have any idea the impact that makes on your sons, especially if you have sons. You don't have any idea the impact that makes on them. My kids, after every mass, they come up and they give me a hug, and it feels good. As a dad, it feels good, to have them come up and hug, and they know, like, Dad is here to keep all of us safe, to keep Jesus in the tabernacle safe, to keep the priest safe, and in turn to keep us safe. And to all the dads out there, I'll tell you this, join your team. It's nobody will protect your family like you will.
Absolutely.
Nobody's going to defend your family like you will. And I think at the end of the day, that's another reason why I do it, is like, I trust me to look over my family. Like, I trust myself more than anybody else on the earth. I trust myself to look after them in the event that, God forbid, it's that worst case scenario. I'm willing to go there if necessary. I don't want that to happen, but I'm willing to go there, and that's going to, our kids are going to need that. We know that rough times are going to come. We know that at some point, somewhere, at some point in time, and you can ask, look at Nigeria. Nigeria is one of the countries that's just constant murder of priests. Every Easter, there's a church that's bombed or shot up. The Nigerians,
very sad.
My hats off to the Nigerians. Oh man, it is what they go through all the time, and they're just so faithful, and that eventually will happen here, and we have to be willing to do something, not just run. We have to take a stand and possibly lay down our lives if necessary to defend our parishes.
Yeah, as men, the expectation is that we would be willing to try to live up to the sacrifice that Jesus gave us for our families, for our faith.
That's right. Absolutely right. And, make that impact on your sons. Your sons need to see that, hey, dad is protecting me. Dad is going to make sure that he does his best to make sure we're as safe as we can be, and I think that's going to set the example to have bolder children going into the future. It's leading by example. And like you said, you can't do it by just going to the back room and staying hidden. I mean, that's part of it, but a big part of it for us men in these modern times, we're going to have to be out there and we're going to have to be bold action,
bold, prayerful, and strong.
That's right.
Yeah. Cause if you can't let one of those things by the wayside. I've been learning over the years that if I were to let my physical health deteriorate to such a point that my kids don't believe I can protect them, the level of respect that they have for me is going to diminish. You know what I mean? And a lot, actually, it's in Sirach. It's like the phrase is something along the lines of, there are no earthly, what is it? There are no earthly riches above the riches of the health of the body. That's what it was. Something along those lines. Look it up. I think it's like Sirach 30:20. I'll put it in the chat later, but it's when I read that, I was like, wow. And that's only, for the Sirach's only in the Catholic Bible, guys, so you Protestants won't see it. But the Catholics care about the health of their bodies. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you honor God by keeping your body. It is a temple. It's a temple of the Holy Ghost, and we need to honor God and look after our bodies and not be, obese. And now, obviously not, I don't know if I'm ever going to lose all of my belly fat because, unfortunately I was exposed to a lot of really bad pathogens in Afghanistan. We had what they call burn pits. People have heard about them.
I've heard of that. Yeah.
It's a constant burning pit of fire where there's no sort of EPA regulations over there. So the civilian contractors, they basically bulldoze everything into one big multi-acre area. They douse it with jet fuel. They light it on fire, and it never stops burning until you stop putting it. But they burned everything: human waste, plastic, lithium-ion batteries, you name it. They got burned in there, and the smoke blew into our camp and into our workspaces 24 hours a day. So
lithium batteries burning is not a good thing.
I have friends that have like multiple different types of cancer at the same, rare types of cancer at the same time. I have a nodule on my adrenal gland that popped up, and it's not cancerous yet. I have to do blood work, and they have to do these special tests on this blood to make sure that it doesn't go cancerous. But I'll say this, since going on the carnivore diet, it stopped growing. It hasn't grown anymore. So it's still 3 millimeters, I think is what the last size it was at. And it stayed 3 millimeters so far, but that's something that, I have to deal with. But again, doing the carnivore diet has still helped me get to a healthy weight. I feel good. I'm working out, and we need to honor God and protect our bodies and to not just, they say, well, you reach your 40s and you stop working out. I don't know who said, I think it was a Navy SEAL or somebody had said something along the lines like, one of the most horrible times in a man's life is when he realizes that he's no longer dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then you feel kind of pathetic, right?
What a statement, what a statement. And I really reflected on that for a long time. I'm like, wow, there's going to come a time when I'm going to be sitting down one day as an old man and realize that I'm no longer viewed as a threat. And that's kind of a strange thought to think about. It's okay. You should be dangerous. Now, going out and doing crazy things is not a good thing, but to be capable,
and
of
controlling
a bad situation, in order to do that, you have to be dangerous, and you can't do that if you're overweight and out of breath in 10 seconds. And I tell you, it was eye-opening. You walk around Taylor's Land with that high grass, and after a rain, I mean, I would just be huffing and puffing. And then this last time we were out there, we're driving in the side-by-side and we're chasing calves and tackling them. And I mean, I remember we had to tag and castrate like 9 calves. And at the end of it, I was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to walk tomorrow. The next day I woke up, I felt fine. And I was like, man, what a difference. If I'd have done this last year, I probably would have had a heart attack from overstressing my body, And so, but we're past that now, and I'm going to continue to look after my health. And I encourage all men to stay dangerous.
And recognize what's within the realm of possibility. Overdoing it, you got to start where you're at and then move up to where you want to be, right?
Yep.
And you should always, I put this was in the podcast I did last week, but I think it's important to surround yourself with the people that are similar to where you want to be, right? Yes. So like when you're looking for brotherhood, mentorship, whatever it is you're looking for, if you're young, you're looking for mentorship. If you're like between my age and, the grave, anywhere in there, you're looking for brotherhood, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's exactly right. And I've been fortunate, to have been able to, be part of the, be a friend of Taylor and the guys that he knows, good, solid Catholic men, and to be able to hang out. Cause like I said, I was a late revert back to the faith, and I'm still learning a lot, and to be around these guys. And there's times that I still struggle with things from my past, and to be able to pick up the phone and call one of them and be like, hey, I'm kind of dealing with this. I was going through a really hard time about a year ago, actually, yeah, almost a year ago. And Taylor, he picked up on it. And he was like, hey, man, are you okay? And I was like, no, I'm actually not. He's like, I tell you, he goes, are you doing anything right now? I'm like, no. He goes, come to the studio. Drove to the studio, and we just sat there. We smoked a couple cigars, kind of unloaded a little bit on him. And then we went and had lunch, and like he put things into a whole new perspective for me. And that was, man, what a moment, first off, he saw something was wrong with me. He picked up the phone and called me and took time out of his. And he's a busy guy. He is a busy guy, but he always makes time. If somebody's hurt and somebody's struggling, I always irks me when people come after him like, you guys have no idea the kind of man he actually is, and to take time out of his busy day, 8 kids, or 7, because one's in the Navy and, not in the house, but 7 kids, and
no longer under the headship. But still.
No longer the headship, but to just take time and spend time with me. That's the kind of man he is, and his sons are becoming a good reflection of that as well, so yeah, it's good to have a good circle of men. Like I said, and we get together on Tuesday nights. We have our rosary. We have a Bible study. If a priest is available, we bring in a priest. Actually, it was really cool. We actually had a military chaplain priest.
Oh, that
joined us not long ago, and that was really cool. So yeah, that was a really great event. But just to be able to get that insight and to sit down and discuss things, home life, how we handle situations and stuff. Advice to each other. It's you can't put a price tag on having a good set of friends like that.
Yeah, and if you belong to a parish and you feel like you're in a desert of no brotherhood in that parish, start looking to see what people are doing after Mass. If there's another couple of guys there, start a prayer group. Whatever you got to do. It's important that the men of the parish know each other and that they keep each other in the faith, because each of us men, especially men who are married with families, we're the headship of that family. And if all the headships get together and work towards helping each other, then we'll all be better men, right?
Yep.
And that's definitely a goal. That's definitely a goal of mine. I try to always find out whatever everybody's going through, what they're doing, and try to get involved,
No, absolutely. No, that, and I'll say this, and that's, at over at Modern Days, we have what they call the St. Joseph Guild. And the first Tuesday of every month, they get together, they have comp line. One of the priests will give a homily on, being fathers and the duties of the father and spiritual directions of the father, what we should be doing, and, how we should be orienting our family and our prayer life and things like that. And then afterwards, they have benediction. We have the Blessed Sacraments brought out. And then afterwards, after that, they go out. Some of the guys bring brisket. Some of the guys bring drinks. They break out the pipes, the cigars. Some guys don't do any of that. And they just want to sit around and they talk and they network. And so many great friendships have been developed like that. And it's, having that time, it's good to have a little bit of time away from the house, to be around other good, solid men. And especially if you're struggling with certain things, in your life, you need to have, sometimes you need another man's perspective to kind of help you guide you along. And absolutely, yeah, you're dead on right about that is to have those types of men gathering and to be Catholic men together, and to try to live that life together. It's super important.
There's one more thing. We're at the 2-hour mark, but there's one more thing I did want to discuss if you're all right with that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Troops of St. George. Mm-hmm. People, I think that it's completely undervalued and underrated, but there's a group in my area that's been doing it for a little while. And it is a bunch of guys getting together to help to mature Catholic boys in the faith, mm-hmm. and also do outdoorsy stuff,
yes,
that is a super cool thing that not many people I've heard talking about it. And I think more people should start them up. The Boy Scouts kind of got, into it's not really Boy Scouts anymore. We'll put it that way.
Yep.
Troops of St. George is a great alternative, and it's not expensive to get involved and start one. So
Yeah, actually,
encourage it.
our co-founder of Galata6.com, Sam is a member of Troops of St. George. Obviously, Taylor's kind of the one that kind of got that whole deal going.
Right.
Was Taylor, and actually, me and my son's going to be old enough to join next year, and so I'm going to become a part of the troops. We're going to become a part of the Troops of St. George as well, and hopefully in the future, my youngest son Joseph, he's actually a Down syndrome baby. And hopefully at some point we'll be joining and doing stuff with him as well as he gets older. So having that bonding time as father and son is you can't put a description on how important it is for the formation of your sons, to have that time together with dad and to go out and do rugged man things. I tell you, my son is the happiest when I'm, out by the smoker, and I mean, he's 7. He's like, "Hey, can I chop some wood for you?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure, go for it." I let him chop some wood, and he is, as happy as he can be. And then he's totally burned out at the end of the night from chopping wood. And he's ready to go to bed, which makes his mom happy. So
There you go. There you go. Now, was there anything else that you wanted to discuss while we're here?
Can't think of anything. I think we covered quite a few subjects. If there's anything else, I'm game.
I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of anything else right now. We pretty much covered everything. You said the way that you and Taylor met each other was just through the parish, essentially, right?
Yeah, through the parish. Yeah, that's kind of how we met, and we kind of got to know each other. Just he was coming in and out, and there's always a crowd around him, so it's like we don't play favorites at Modern Day. I look after everybody the exact same. I would defend your family if you were at my parish, just like I would defend my family, but being who he is, there are people that try to seek him out, and a lot of them are well-intentioned people, but there's been a few times kind of like, man, that person's acting a little bit squirrely, and I would just kind of give them a heads up, like, hey, be careful with this, or hey, I'll walk with you out, just to make sure you're good. And I just did that like I would do for anybody. There's times at all night adoration at 3:00 in the morning, there's some weirdo and like, hey, man, let me walk you out to your car. There's kind of a guy here. I'm gonna walk you out to your car and make sure you're good. And that's kind of how our friendship started, was just like that. And we kind of grew closer over time. And one day I was on his live stream, and he had a bunch of trolls in there. He's like, "Hey man, would you mind doing some moderating for me?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure, I'll moderate for you." I'm retired. I got nothing going on. So that's how I ended up started moderating for him, and we became even closer. And we've one of my great friends now. He's actually the godfather to my baby Joseph. And that's how me and him kind of got together, and we just grown closer over the years. And I love visiting his ranch and helping out there anytime. I'm a West Texas boy. I'm from West Texas, from more country than most people have ever seen. And so I'm like always willing to get my hands dirty out there on his place if he needs help.
Yeah, and it's funny you bring up the moderating, because that is like the unsung hero of the YouTube channel in general. I've been on some streams with some pretty crazy stuff going on in the chat, and if you don't have good moderation, that's going to be your chat when your channel blows up.
Yeah, it is. And you have to keep it under control. And Dan is the head moderator. There was another moderator, but he's now in seminary. So it's just me and Dan right now. But Dan is the one who actually makes all the short videos you see out on Twitter and stuff. He's the one that actually puts those together, puts the music to them and all the graphics. And he is so talented. And but we have a blast. Me and him have a blast, because we're in the live chat. We're interacting with people. We're also shooting messages to Taylor, and then we're also chatting on a separate chat all at the same time. We're posting links to Patreon or a book or some promotion thing that he's got going on. And so we're doing all these things at one time. And then you have, the trolls, you have the Protestant trolls that come in. Then you have other, other people from the, the leftist part of the church that come in. They try and troll in there. So we got to boot them out. And it's funny. I always tell people moderating is actually kind of a lot of fun, because after a while, it's kind of, you can spot them the moment they come in. With their very first comment, I'm like, that's going to be a troll. I guarantee that's going to be a troll. And not 5 minutes goes by and they post something crazy, and we boot them out the door, or we put them in timeout for a while.
Yeah, I've moderated a few chats in my day, and I don't know how you would monitor a chat that's got 1.5 or however many millions of subscribers he's got at this point.
Oh, during the conclave. Oh man, that was moderating on overdrive. I mean, the chat was going so fast that it was hard. Me and Dan we were really working overtime with that one because it was just, there's like so many 10,000 people on the stream at one time and people were chatting. And yeah, that was actually really intense. Hopefully we don't have to do another conclave for a while.
Right. Yeah. Definitely don't want to have another conclave that quick. That would not, the only time was the year of the three popes when you had like, boom, it was the death of Paul VI, then John Paul I, then John Paul II, all in 1 year. That would have been wild.
Oh, that was put in modern times. Oh, that would be an absolute nightmare.
Yes. I mean, the YouTube algorithm for Catholics would be great because everybody would be so zoned in, but trying to like get through your faith journey during that, oh man.
Ooh, man, that would be rough. But yeah, it's a blast. I really like the moderating thing. That's actually really fun. It's funny because we always have this running joke in our group because it's just me, Taylor, and Dan in this chat, in our moderator chat. And I was like, Taylor is notorious. Oh my goodness, he is so notorious. He catches me at Costco all the time. Like he goes like, I promise you, if you see that he's live on a Wednesday, chances are I am at Costco. Like if you know where I live, you could invade. Well, if you keep asking my German Shepherd, you can invade my house and take whatever you wanted because I am at Costco. He is notorious for whenever I'm at Costco. Like, all right, guys, hold on. We got to divert to the food court because Taylor's gone live. So we got to put this on hold, or I'll be walking through the frozen aisle, picking out my grass-fed beef. I'm like, okay, that's a troll. Got to kick him out, I have moderated so many times while just walking through the aisles of Costco.
Costco is great. Other than, oh, you know what? You might appreciate this. The only thing I don't like about Costco is they're hard into the DEI, right? Oh. What is DEI in Latin? What does that spell?
DA. Oh, it's DA. I don't know what is this?
When you're singing the Agnus Dei, what does Dei mean?
God.
Yeah. So what does the woke DEI subscribe to? DEI, their own version of days that their God is DEI.
Oh.
Yeah, I just put that together today. I was like, that is wild. I like the letters are in that order for a reason. I just assume that's got to be it.
Wow, I never thought about that like that. So here's another funny thing about Costco. So we have patron saint of barbecue, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so he has certain attributes to him. He's a Catholic guy, so he's kind of got this going on. But he has a doppelganger at Costco.
Oh,
looks just like him, but he's like all tatted up and kind of hipster kind of looking. I'm like, dude, that's a DEI patron saint of barbecue, man. He's a DEI version of that.
Lovely.
I even snapped a picture and sent it to him like, hey, look, it's the DEI patron saint of barbecue. He was dying. He was like, oh my goodness, man. Yeah. So yeah, Costco's great. I like it, but yeah, he's not a Costco guy. Patron saint's he's not a Costco guy, but he's great.
Yeah, that's probably my only complaint about Costco is it's heavily they lean heavily into the DEI stuff, but their hot dogs are still cheap and their pizzas are actually pretty good.
Yeah, I haven't had one in a long time. It's
right.
Actually, I just had the hot dog earlier today because I'd smoked some hot dogs for the party we had, and yeah, that was great. I love their hot dogs. Those all beef hot dogs are amazing.
So
I'm still trying to rack my brain on the whole DA thing, man. That's
yeah. Seriously, if you want to pass that along to anybody that wants to talk about it, I think that's crazy. It literally just came to me today. I was like, that is what's going on here.
I'm gonna go back and clip that. I'm gonna go back and clip that and send it to who. Yeah, man, that's pretty cool.
I really think that's something to do with it. Why would you choose the letters in that order?
That's gonna have me scratching my beard the rest of the night, man.
It just literally, I was like, wow, that is definitely why they did that.
I kind of wish I was still drinking beer because I could seriously drink like probably 4 or 5 beers and like really
just think about that. Well, just smoke a cigar instead. You'll feel just as good, right?
Yeah, or I'll pop me a Rogue here in a minute.
There you go. Well, on that note, though, I really appreciate you coming on here. And if there's nothing else, then we'll point them to your website, the GALA.
Yeah, please. Thank you. Yeah. Anybody who wants to
6.
sign up, yeah, please, shoot us a message through there, and we're glad to help out in any way. And thanks for having me on. And it was great talking with you. And yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, man. We'll have to do it again in the future. And on that note, y'all have a good night. And go follow him on Twitter. It's OLIVOJOEY, right? Spell it right? There you go. OLIVO Joey.
Yep.
It's backwards.
You got it, man.
There you go.
Good stuff.
All
If you're ever in Dallas, I'll take you on a tour of barbecue around here.
I would definitely take you up on that. You got to be the expert. Either you or is the other guy in the same area too?
Patron Saint of Barbecue's in the area, man. Yeah, he knows all the Fort Worth spots. Well, I know those spots too, but he like lives over there, and man, he's an animal when it comes down to. And some of these places you got to get there like super early in the morning because they sell out like in 2 hours.
That's wild.
Yeah,
I'm definitely having you take me on the barbecue tour if I go down there. So
excellent. I'll see if I can get Patron to go along with us.
I will let you know for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. On that note, guys, we're going to end this stream. I've taken up 2 hours and 15 minutes. It's 16 minutes of his time now. And I'm sure he's got other things to do tonight before he goes to bed. So
yeah, I got a bunch of kiddos that are going to be ready to crash out here in a minute.
Yeah, there you go. All right. We'll see you guys on the next one.